or the threat of tariffs or the temporary implication of tariffs, what have you. It clearly worked. All right. It was indeed a method to the madness. It wasn't really madness if you looked at this big picture. I think a lot of you who are in here now or listening to this later, I'm sure a lot of you saw the big picture. So you understand where we were, where we're at today, and where we're going. That's the goal anyway. So no need to recap yesterday. I'm sure you're all perfectly aware of what happened. I'm sure you're also aware that the next time a president uses social media that millions of people see every day and he tells you to buy and you're an investor, you should probably listen to his advice. Uh, Lots of good news out of yesterday. If this is all confusing to you and you don't understand what the master plan was and the amount of leverage that President Trump created with his moves and counter moves over the last week, it was the art of the deal on steroids, guys, which is why the people, the detractors of this administration and what we're trying to do, are very upset. You know who's not upset, though? All the countries on this planet that we do commerce with, not named China, because they think they're breathing a heavy sigh of relief, friends, because of what happened yesterday. All right. I think that countries like South Korea, Japan, possibly Vietnam, Cambodia, what do all those countries have in common, right? They're all in Asia and Southeast Asia. They all surround China. And if they walk away with really fair and reciprocal trade agreements with President Trump, maybe even as soon as this week, man, that puts China in a bad position. This is how Trump gets things done, guys. We talk about it here and there, but the credit is never where it needs to be. The guy creates maximum leverage to achieve optimum results. It's really quite amazing. And one of his tenets, if you've read Art of the Deal, as I have several times, is that the best way to win a negotiation is that you don't put yourself in a position where you seem like to the other person in the transaction, you don't seem like you're in a position where you have to make a deal. Now China has to make a deal, guys. It's not even up for debate. It's not even my opinion. It's not even my speculation. It's just a fact. China has to make a deal now. They're completely boxed in and isolated, really, from the rest of the world. It's really that big a thing. So he also said, just making some copy here, excuse me. He also said that President Trump said, do and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said, if you do not retaliate, you'll be rewarded and things will work out. Two people have already asked me, what did he mean by rewarded? Well, that those his chart last week about reciprocal tariffs and the calculation, and everybody got uh, very hot under the collar about that chart and the equation he used to figure that out. It's all not relevant in the long run, is it? And their reward for not retaliating is they probably won't face the reciprocal tariff percentages that were on that chart on Liberation Day last week. Okay, that's a good thing, guys, for them and for us, because I think it's the uncertainty in the market's gone. But again, it's not gone for one country. So if you look up above, AMU's tariffs, the Chinese yuan just hit an 18-year low. Looks like it finally realized Trump was right about who's winning the trade war. It falls to a 2007 level. Okay, the Chinese currency. Okay, that's not a minor thing, friends. That's not oh, whatever, it'll bounce back. By applying this maximum leverage, Trump created a scenario where the not only do the Chinese look like the bad guy, the optics war is very important for them guys. I don't know if you follow the way, if any of you have done business in Asia or even know anything about it from school or whatever, that the optics war and the appearance of negotiation is as big as the actual pen to paper agreement itself in Asian culture. All countries, China, Japan, South Korea, and what have you. They just do business a little bit differently than we do in the West. And it's part of the culture and it's not insignificant, guys. These are not anecdotal things I'm telling you. This is huge to them because China looks like a fucking douchebag this morning, number one. They also look like they don't know what they're doing, and they let Trump completely circumvent the situation, which he did in a stealth-like fashion. And as I said, his competitors are in China's other competitors in the region. Like Vietnam, like Japan, like South Korea. They're putting themselves in a pretty sweet spot, aren't they? So, and the EU. Let me get some news up in the nest for you guys. 'Cause I'm sure it's early for everybody right now, but, uh, we've got the EU pauses retaliatory tariffs. That's up in the nest there from Johnny MAGA. EU pauses retaliatory tariffs on the US, and the US is still collecting 10% on all products they export to us. So we're still getting some short-term revenue, in the interim here, and it's a 90-day pause. And I think the best place to start, guys, is let me read you how this all started. Okay, two posts on Truth Social, uh, which I hope you all read. All right, so let's see. Let me just log into that. Sorry, apologies. I should have had this open. Such a good day yesterday. I'm going to get into Scott Bessent too a bit. He's got a major role in this. Okay, so at about noontime yesterday, I'm sorry, at about 11 11 a.m. Eastern yesterday, President Trump put on Truth Social, quote, "This is a great time to buy DJT." That was all in caps. Okay. Secondly, another post coming in at about what time was that at? About 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern yesterday. Based on the lack of respect that China has shown the world's markets, I'm hereby raising the tariff charge to China by the U.S. to 125% effective immediately. At some point, hopefully in the near future, China will realize that the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable. Conversely, and based on the fact that more than 75 countries have called representatives of the United States, including the Departments of Commerce, Treasury, and the U.S. Trade Representative, he was the guy testifying on in front of the House yesterday, Jameson Greer, bit of a younger guy. Continuing, to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed relative to trade barriers, tariffs, currency manipulation, and non-monetary tariffs. Okay. uh, like currency manipulation and regulation barriers are considered, just for those of you that don't know, those could be construed as non-monetary uh, trade barriers, not or non-monetary tariffs. So if China makes regulations for the US to open a steel plant in mainland China so harsh that it's basically impossible for them to get into that market or whatever, that's considered a tariff because they're making it impossible for the competitor to do commerce there. We're here. We have a million Chinese companies. We have companies from everywhere in the United States. We don't discriminate as long as they're in compliance with their law. China doesn't do that. They don't let anybody in there. They're not the only one, but they're obviously the biggest one. Okay, let me wrap this up. I have authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lowered reciprocal tariff during this period of 10%, also effective immediately. Okay, so believe it or not, guys, like 80% of the countries on that chart We're just at the baseline 10% on Liberation Day. Some of the smaller countries, Azerbaijan, Uganda, places like that that we don't really do business with. So I think where this is going is we're going to have a baseline 10% tariff. Believe it or not, guys, we didn't have a 10% tariff on some of these larger countries, depending on the good or service. So while 10% sounds really, really low, you have to understand something. Even larger countries in Europe or in Asia and South in Western Africa, we weren't even at 10%. That's how much we were shooting ourselves in the foot. So, I mean, it's not going to generate 600 billion in revenue, but it might generate 2 or 300 billion. And that sure is better than how we were doing before, which was essentially zero. Okay. We were losing money on trade. China's the biggest one because we buy the most and they have the largest imbalance. And this is something, guys, I've been doing spaces on the economy pretty much since this administration started. I really think this is going to be my wheelhouse the next 4 years. If there's something else, I'll do my best. And I'm sure not an expert in this, but I want you guys to know something because you have been inundated with very smart people, whether it's Mario Space or Diligent Space or some of the, where you get a lot of experts in there. There is and you've heard US senators like Rand Paul, that there is a prevailing wisdom, quote unquote, and I'm being generous by calling it wisdom, that the country with the surplus has the advantage over the country with a deficit. What do I mean by that? So we're talking about China mostly here. China has a 200 some odd billion-dollar trade surplus with in other words, they sell more to us than they take in, okay? Uh, by north of 200 billion. I think it was 240 billion per year. Okay, so what does that tell you? It tells me their economy is export, export, export. Export means they're selling goods out of their country into the United States. So those Chinese exports leaving the country, okay, become American imports. Imports implying coming into the country. All right. I know all of you know this. Some of you might not. I assume nothing. All right. So when you have a business, a radical, well, China's a bit radical, but we have to stay on China because that's what this is all about today. Uh, they have a very radical business model, and that is export, export, export. They need to sell those goods at mass volume year after year for decades. That's their plan. They're not set up to do reciprocal. China, since the early 90s, has been on a course to not be involved in fair, and certainly not reciprocal trade with the United States or anybody else. Okay? You have to keep that mindset. They are isolated in the world in that model. It's been very successful for them, but now that stops. So, excuse me. So that's something you need to have at the top of your mind as we hash out this discussion here, friends. Okay, I disagree whether they're MAGA people, whether they're libertarians, whether they're crypto boys, whether they're never Trump Republicans, Democrats, whatever, people with TDS. I don't agree with the concept that the export country, and when you have that much of an imbalance, how do they have the upper hand? This is how you solve it. We just stop buying their shit. Like period. How do this seems to be very complicated by people that are very smart, or they claim to be. They're wrong, guys. I know you're hearing a lot of people on this app that you like and that you follow that will, you believe tariffs are just a tax passed on to the consumer of the country that's applying the tariffs. Okay, maybe if it's like I might be on board with that if it's a tariff of say we tariff Finland at 5%, and they're tariffing us at 15% on a certain product, okay? And we raise the tariff to 15 or whatever. Uh, there's a 10% disparity there. Finland has to make up that margin. It's not a huge margin in terms of big trades. So they would pass, they would just jack their prices up. Maybe in that circumstance, but when you have a $240 billion a year disparity between two global superpowers, um, we could, that's why Kevin O'Leary said raise the tariffs to 400. We just don't buy their goods. The problem is China because it shows that they get a lot of credit for being diabolical, but they've taken it too far. Now they got caught with their pants down. You see? Now they're in a position now where we just stop. I know it's impossible, but even a minor modification into the amount of Chinese goods that come into the United States, guys, I can't emphasize this enough. It really fucks up what they're trying to do. They've become reliant on being parasitic off of the US consumer. We've helped them in that. Every time you go to Amazon and Walmart, you're helping in that cause into making them more powerful. They didn't do it alone, but I'm not here to pick on us. I'm here to pick on them. They've become so accustomed and their entire economy and culture is based off of living off of the United States that I mean even a 5 to 10% shift in the amount of product that goes out of that country to US suppliers to be sold to us plebs hurts them. I mean, it turns look what it did to their currency yesterday, guys. So when you hear people saying the Chinese economy is a paper tiger, they're not lying to you, are they? Let me give you some more good news on that front. Where is it? So from Zero Hedge, this is this morning. Chinese sellers, it's in the nest now. Chinese sellers on the Amazon platform to significantly increase prices or exit the U.S. market altogether, given Trump's tariffs. So Amazon stuff that you buy on that's from China is going to be either pulled off their market temporarily or jacked up in price. So buyer beware. I don't tell anybody what to do, but now would be a good time to try and boycott stuff in China while we have our boot, while Trump has his loafer on their throat. Now would be the time, guys. If you're in the uh, boycott set of mind, this is called inflicting maximum pain and putting salt in the wound. Couple more things I'm going to throw up in the nest, and then I'll get your comments, guys. I do want you to talk. I do not want to be the only person talking today. I don't know how you guys can listen to me for 2 hours without grabbing a mic. Kevin Hassett, who's the economic advisor to President Trump, he was on Fox and Friends this morning. Uh, Kevin Hassett says tariff offers are being considered with 15 countries. Okay, so we're in a position right now where 15 to 20 countries, and among those, some the biggest players are Japan, South Korea, I think, to come up with a really good deal. And remember, the goal here is not to get to zero tariff, which Vietnam offered. Okay, that's not necessarily the goal. Zimbabwe offered that too. I think Israel did. We don't need parity necessarily because a country like South Korea that we actually do get a lot of shit from, but we have more leverage on them. What's that leverage? Well, we've been protecting them since the end of the Korean War. As I said yesterday, there's a reason why Kim Jong Un or his father or his grandfather never marched their army south into Seoul because we've been there since 1952. Okay, that costs 20 billion a year. So we need to factor that into the negotiations. I think that's why South Korea wanted to make investments in an LNG pipeline to natural gas pipeline via Alaska to the peninsula in Korea. I don't know how that's going to work, but so we have to factor that in. It's not just like, okay, South Korea, you've got a $50 billion trade imbalance with us. You're you're we don't need you to get down to zero. What we need is for you to stay at 10%, and we need you to start giving, it cost 20 billion last year to have our military in South Korea. We don't plan on leaving, but you need to start paying for that. Like the EU, Are like NATO paying their fair share for European defense against China and Russia? Same concept. So we have to factor that into the negotiation. A win for Trump, depending on the country, guys, and this is really where you have to go country by country. A win for Trump is not necessarily, okay, Vietnam is at 35%, let's get them to zero, and we win. I understand that sounds good, but there's other things in play here depending on the country. When he goes to the European Union, they still are not paying their NATO commitment. So that has to be fair. It's not about zero. Okay, so don't think if he walks away, if any of these countries come up and it's like, oh, he only got their export tariff rate down to 20% from 50. I mean, that's not really a win. Come on. Well, look at the devil's in the details, guys. Are they giving us cash? You know, South Korea's got a lot of money. They should be paying at least half of that 20 billion a year to keep the military in the southern part of the peninsula. Okay, NATO. Before we even talk to Germany or France about renegotiation, how delinquent are they on their NATO? I know Germany's still underpaying by 5 or 10% of what, and they're not even a big fraction of that. They got to get on the stick with this other stuff. Okay. Anyway, few speakers up. I'll pause there. Rosie, I saw you come up first. What do you have for us today?
Well, okay, so I was disturbed yesterday and I just want everyone to keep eyes out. There was an actual person from China in a space. They were putting down the Chinese talking points and actually like left it for people to read. So they're in our spaces now, and I'm not talking about people who ran from China. This is someone who is speaking pro China propaganda. Like, I could not believe I actually heard what I heard, but I did. So keep your ears out in these spaces. Not all of them I'm able to get a mic on because I'm in an alt because I like to listen to everything. But the fact that people are entertaining that and they're letting it go, and Americans are allowing China to critique our president, that's a problem. So do with that what you will. I'm happy to give anyone the information from what I heard and where to go listen to it for themselves. But I have an issue with the UK people coming in and talking about American politics and picking on our president. I am damn sure not okay with someone with a distinct enemy as China coming in and talking about talking points and being given just free run. Go ahead, drop your Chinese propaganda here. We are at that point, and I'm just floored and can't say I'm surprised because why should I be? But everyone, keep your ears out and, you know, let's do the right thing when it comes to it and call it what it is. And anyone in that space that you have influence with, point it out because I don't think people, not everyone thinks like we do, and not everyone understands the enemy within that we have.
Yeah, correct, Rosie. Yeah, I didn't hear that, but I did hear the British people. Usually they go into Mario's space, they go into the fine. There's a lot of European expats. This is the thing that kills me. These British people that don't even live in the UK anymore, that they all live in Dubai or somewhere in UAE, and they're just so we pick on Ian Miles Chung appropriately, maybe not enough. There's a lot of UK citizens, guys, that don't even live in the UK. They never tell you that are into crypto and into finance, and they're the real globalists, and they're not anons. They have Substacks. They do financial stuff. I mean, they're in here criticizing Trump that he doesn't know what he's talking about. They don't even live in their country of origin, which I think is what Rosie's alluding to. One's that Simon guy who's just his obsessed with Israel. And I don't even like the Israeli government, but when you're a one trick pony like that, and you just talk about this whole thing about Trump being owned by the Rothschilds or the Zionists, it's getting really fucking old, guys. At this point, it's an opinion. It's like saying, I think the Yankees are better than the Red Sox. It's just a fucking opinion at this point. Nobody's providing evidence. It's all feelings with that. Uh, and they're all in this group. There's some Arab expats that live in Europe. Of course, they don't live in their countries that are third world shitholes anymore, but they complain about our country and our president who's actually trying to save what's left of Palestine, save what's left of Yemen. They're doing nothing. And the country they have a passport from, whether it's the UK or France or, if they're from the Netherlands or whatever, but they have Arab surnames, why aren't they there? I don't understand. Rosie, you're 100% right.
Yeah, and
We
I do understand because we have a mainstream media that's no longer effective. So what are they going to do? They're going to get people on X to go into spaces and speak because they're influential. Now, we may not listen to them, but others do. And that's the message. We've been hearing fake news. We get it. The news is done. They're here now and they're not friendly. They kind of groom us into thinking, oh, they like blah blah blah, and we can see eye to eye with them. We have to remember, America, if we're not under attack, anyone talking shit about President Trump, our president, and about our country, and about the people who have served this nation, if they have any agenda whatsoever, how dare they? How dare they? It won't be on one of my stages, I'll tell you right now. I block them the moment that happens because they're not welcome in my space. We're going to be talking shit about my president. No, not right now. No.
Yeah, if they are, they just know they lost a high stakes game of chicken, which is exactly what Prodigal and others were saying in Mario's space over the weekend. That's all this was. And you had the libertarians. We'll get to that. I want to get to the speakers and all that, but man, the panicking, that is going to be a trademark like fake news. All It's going to be one of Trump's classics because we'll get into the panicking. They factor into this as well. Janet, I think you were next up, then Bob, and got some other people on deck here.
Okay, thank you for letting me have a mic. Yeah, I just wanted to chime in about not buying any products from China. It's not that hard. You just read the label, and pretty much you can tell when you're looking at a shelf of toys or whatever, what is not made or what is made in China. It worked for Bud Light. When Bud Light came out and tried to cram stuff down our throat, and we all said, hell no, guess what? Bud Light, the company that owned Bud Light, said, wow, man, we got to make some changes. So we can make an impact. It just has to be enough of us. If enough of us say, hell no, we're not buying your crap, it'll make a difference. But the thing is, if you just say, oh, someone else will do it, it doesn't happen. And then the other thing I wanted to say was what I'm seeing on lots of different things, not just here on X, but on other platforms, Instagram, um, and Facebook and some other apps, people sharing something that came across their timeline because of the headline. They didn't even read the article. I'm seeing more and more things bashing Trump by bashing Trump people's profiles. If you actually read the profile of the person that you're sharing, you'd know they were a Trump basher, and they have naked pictures of Trump, fake Trumps, just nasty shit on their profile. And the headline says, go Trump or whatever. And when you read it and it says, go fuck yourself, stuff like that. So please read anything before you share it. Make sure that you know what you're sharing because it makes you look like a Trump hater. So please try to take a few more seconds to actually read what you're sharing. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you for letting me speak, and God bless America.
Yep, good point there. Good point, Janet.
And I'm jumping on Janet, what she just said. Janet, you are absolutely right. I'm not renewing my Amazon Prime. I'm done because Amazon is China.
Yep, good point. Bob, you had your hand up, buddy. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Gads.
Good morning.
Great space, great talk, and good download from everybody on the information. In the nest, I just put my concern about the prison slave labor having nothing to do. So passing their time away, they're just gonna, needlessly swing a hammer on a rock and tap a rock to, keep their physical fitness in shape. I think the child slave labor will still be busy making all the little Christmas presents and stuff like that at this time. I don't see any relief for them, but yeah, China's slave labor is going to be heavily impacted by this with all the exporting stuff that they do. So again, thanks to Bill Clinton for allowing China into the World Trade Organization, claiming that they'll play fair and adhere to the rules, right? They've done nothing but steal everybody's intellectual property, designs, etc. You know, we know all the knockoff stuff that comes from China, whether it's Gucci or Rolex or any other, you know, brands like that. So I'm happy that President Trump has put the screws to them, and we'll see what the results are.
Yes, sir. And one big part of that, Bob, and everybody else, is I kind of touched on, and I'm sure you all know that part of this operation uh, is that they're putting China in a position. See, one of the things they do, you've heard this term, devaluing their currency. They cheapen the yuan, so it becomes more liquid, right? Um, it's a very complex thing, but that's part of their quote unquote non-tariff barrier. It's hard to compete. It's hard for Amazon sellers to buy rubber dog shit that's made in Indiana when people there are making $12 an hour in that factory when in Kwangtuk province or whatever in China they're making a bowl of rice a week. They're saving so much overhead, and even if they are getting paid, again, they devalue their currency. So it's just an incredible savings for a wholesaler, right? And this is how China has kept Western business interest uh, on continent for 40 years. Well, really, it's been amplified since '94, like Bob talked about with Bill Clinton. When it costs so little to make inferior products and you're still making your margins and all that as a wholesaler, like these people that sell on Amazon and what have you, and eBay or Etsy or whatever. Uh, yeah, I mean, it's tough to walk away from that when your overhead is so low, when you're not paying acceptable wages. Part of this goes into play, guys, with Mexico, because they're not as bad as China with human rights violations and labor, but when we have our negotiation with Mexico, that's going to come out. They keep cheating the USMCA because they underpay, and they're also engaged in passing off Chinese products as Mexican, right? Which is getting flooded into the US market, whether it's car parts or whatever, agriculture. So we have this vicious cycle where China is so embedded in global trade that this is what it's going to take to stop them. All right, Arthur, you're up, buddy. Hello.
Oh, hey, how are you, Gads? Um,
Good.
yeah, great discussion. Thanks for the mic. I just wanted to throw in some market, uh, early market data here this morning and stuff that I'm watching. So we just got March CPI, and it was lower than consensus estimates. Consensus estimates for the month of March were up zero point 0.1, and prices actually fell by 0.1%. There's another metric which is often cited
Consumer price index, just so
yeah,
everybody
consumer
knows.
price,
Yep.
inflation. Um, Oftentimes economists and the administration will cite X food and energy because those can be more volatile components. The expectation was up 0.1, or sorry, expectation was up 0.3, which would be an annualized rate of 3.6%, and it came in well below. X food and energy up 0.1. So early read on that. The US 10-year yield is falling. It was up around 4.35% this morning. It's now fallen to below 4.2, or in and around 4.2. Very important, again, because as I'm sure you and many on this space understand or are aware, the U.S. has to refinance close to $9 trillion of debt this year, and the majority of it is in the back half of the year. And then the other key, so I'm watching bonds very closely. I mean, majority of the reporting and discussion on X and your business channels and your nightly news will focus on the stock market. But it's important to understand that there's probably 5 times the volume, dollar volume traded in bonds every day. And if you think about it, right, the US have 34 trillion of outstanding debt floating out there, right? And you multiply that by all of the other sovereign debt. So it's very important to watch. Important that 10-year yield comes down, right? And interest rates come down without collapsing, right? Because if they're collapsing, then that's the bond market's way of saying that the economy is falling apart. The other thing that I'm watching very closely is forex, right? Foreign exchange, and particularly the U.S. dollar. So Trump and Bissett are quite outspoken and upfront about the fact that although the U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency, they feel that other trading partners are artificially manipulating their currencies lower. So they want to see a lower U.S. dollar. But again, be careful what you wish for, because if the U.S. dollar falls too much, then at the margin, right, because the U.S. is still predominantly a consuming nation and an importing nation, if that U.S. dollar falls too much, then it makes imported goods more expensive. So a couple cross currents, okay, that I'll point out. And again, these are not things that you're going to hear mentioned in the mainstream business news. I'm noticing this morning that like the US dollar has fallen 2% against the Swiss franc. And while the 2% doesn't sound like a big move, in a day, it's a huge move, and it's down 4% versus the franc in 4 trading days. So again, I can't posit as to why. I'm just telling you what I see, right? A lot more volatility in foreign exchange and a lot more volatility in the bond market. And then you're seeing gold, right? Gold is up again today. So just watch those cross currents, and again, this sort of volatility, we've seen huge moves. So obviously I'm not I'm not telling anyone here anything that they don't already know, but this sort of volatility intraday is presaging something, right, going forward. So just my message is just be careful out there, and don't try to be a hero. That we're seeing big shifts afoot here. And
Patience is
usually
a
when that
virtue.
happens, things tend to break, right? I don't want to black pill the room, but these sorts of moves are unprecedented, and they're not really getting a lot of play in the mainstream business news.
It's definitely a gamble by Trump and Bissett, uh, because again, the pushback argument, to build on Arthur's point really quickly, friends, is that the detractors of the tariffs think that they're just convinced Trump is hell bent on devaluing the currency, uh, devaluing U.S. currency to make it more advantageous for investment. Okay, well, like what the Chinese are doing, but have been doing for 30 something years, but not as radical. I don't know if that's 100% the plan. I think that would be like a happy byproduct of what they're actually trying to do. I think, as I can read this, not even 24 hours past, uh, I think there was some people were yippy in the bond market. Okay. Uh, there was a complete meltdown with trading for almost a week. And that shows how fragile our economy is, guys, that people couldn't handle a Black Monday that wasn't really a Black Monday, right? So The jury's still out, and I got to tell you though, if what Trump and Bissett are doing works, guys, that's the reset. And I just before I go back to Janet, thanks, Arthur. Great stuff as always. Pragmatism in practice. Uh, so Arthur talked about CPI, consumer price index, essentially inflation. Look up above. We didn't meet. Now I'm seeing two conflicting numbers, but they're still lower than what was expected. We were expected a 3% inflation jump. Uh, Inflation's fallen to 2.4. That's Mario's post up in the nest. I saw Unusual Whales say 2.8. That's significant. Okay. I'm hoping it's closer to 2.4 because we didn't meet expectations on inflation. That's a good thing. Okay, we're kind of in a stagnancy period with that. That's helpful when you're trying to execute this plan. Having inflation does not help matters. Okay, so that's important. That's up in the nest. As far as the Fed goes, because I get a lot of questions about this, I don't think the Fed's going to drop interest rates, guys. Uh, Trump and Bissett are going to have to navigate around the Fed. All right, they're all these moves and counter moves they're doing. They're going to try and jumpstart this thing. Even if the tax cuts pass, I still think Bissett's going to be sitting around with his thumb up his ass. I don't think they have, because you know why? They cut them when they shouldn't have been during Biden's presidency, right? So, what's the Fed's primary job? To stop inflation, basically, to stave off inflation to the United States. So they're just never going to be in a comfortable spot because Powell, over the last 4 years, has painted himself into a corner because of the fact that Janet Yellen was printing a lot of money during Biden's president. That's why we never had $7 gas, guys, uh, during the Ukraine Russia crest of the war there when we should have. Okay, because A, he started opening the strategic oil reserve, Biden. B, the Fed was cutting interest rates. And C, the Treasury Department was printing money they shouldn't have been. We had Bidenflation. We had a mini recession under Biden, but it was so well masked by all these players I'm telling you about. Smart people like us knew what was. We knew exactly what. Like, how am I paying 280 for a gallon of gas when there's a fucking war in Europe going on right now? How is oil not $100 a barrel right now? We didn't even have a war in 2008, but we had the BP oil spill in the in the Gulf of America. You remember that? We had Fannie and Freddie, the housing bubble, subprime lending market, and yet there was no kinetic war going on. This is before ISIS got started in Syria. This is just after us getting out of Iraq and Afghanistan for the most part, and yet oil was $100 a barrel, right? Something to think about. Janet, back to you.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the boycott type of thing as a mom and as a consumer. Basically, one of the people in the household that purchases, we're the ones that make the difference. If your spouse is out working, they're not buying, so you're the one that's going to fall onto. And one thing I've had a problem with is family and friends saying, well, I'm really on a budget, blah, blah, blah. And I'm a coupon person and stuff like that. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it does work. I explain to them about the child labor that they're using, you knowing that you want to save money on bread or those plastic bowls that you want to get or whatever it is that you're purchasing, and not think about this child being paid $1 an hour to work 40 hours a week or more, instead of going to school and being a normal kid like your children. And a lot of people don't think about that. So if you see any articles, I'll try to find a few and put them down in the bubble so they stay with this space when we leave. But those are the ways that I talk to these people, and they start looking at me like, I didn't realize that. And I said, well, Nike shoes are $900, but they probably paid $10 to make that pair of shoes. So who do you think is getting the money? It isn't the employees. So people need to start looking at it from the other side as a business owner and seeing why they are using this labor. And you, as a consumer, have the right to buy somewhere else. You do not have to buy their product. There are other things like Great Value brand, other ones that are made in America or by a friendly country that don't use child labor. So just think about that when you're talking to your friends, at a school function or whatever else that you're doing. As a mom and the consumer, a lot of this is going to fall on us. So please just give yourself a few minutes to start looking into a few things and how to talk to other people about not buying stuff that's made in China until at least we get past this hurdle and help Trump. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for letting me speak again.
You're welcome. No problem at all. No problem at all, Janet. Yeah, do what you guys got to do on a personal level. Make good decisions that are going to be helpful. I can tell you, I'm looking at some news right now. The more MAGA centric economic pundits are very, very happy that uh, inflation did not rise to or exceed 3%. So that's an additional piece of good news, friends. It won't make the Fed do anything, but uh, the evidence is being based. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Jerome Powell to adjust interest rates. I still think he won't, but the news is overall good right now. Uh, Let me just take a look. Just reviewing the news here.
Hey, Gads.
Yeah, good. Yep.
Yeah, I just want to comment. You're right. I mean, the inflation data is quite good. But again, one of the things we should be watching. So we see the news, right? So watch the U.S. 10-year yield, and where it goes today. Like I've learned, being in this business for 30 plus years and watching the market. Oftentimes it's not the news itself, but it's the reaction to the news that's more important. So the expectation would be to see the U.S. 10, all things being equal, that U.S. 10-year interest rate move lower, right? If inflation is lower and the expectation of the trend is to continue, all things being equal, you would see that interest rate come down. So the initial reaction was we saw the yield on the 10-year move lower, but it's since retraced a fair bit of that. So it's back above 4.3% here. So just a bit of context around that, right? So before the shit hit the fan over the last week or so, the yield on the US 10-year was about 3.9. It had moved below 4, and that's a key level, and it's now again. So more benign inflationary data. The initial reaction was the yield move lower. It's since retraced that. So watch that today. That's going to get a lot of. I think you're going to hear a lot about the US 10-year today, and sort of how it trades relative to the data and the news that was announced.
So Arthur, now you're saying we've had a couple of months of, or maybe 2 weeks of tariff experts. Now we're going to have experts on bonds. Get ready for that.
Yeah, everybody's
an expert on bonds, right?
Well, let's see. It's a pretty it's a pretty dry topic, right? I understand for most people. I love talking about stocks and the stock market a lot more than bonds, but the reality is, with the amount of debt in the system, right? I don't know, 100 trillion in the world or something like that. I did some obscene number that it just doesn't even make any sense to me. This is the sort of this is all about liquidity, right? And the plumbing of the financial markets. And this one vehicle, right? The US 10-year bond, there's all kinds of financial activity driven, right? Corporations, when they borrow for 10 years, are sort of gauged against the US 10-year, and the premium they have to pay, right, is based on that number, among other things. But you're gonna, I think, hear a lot of chatter there, right? And and with all due respect to all of the FinTwit experts, Mario and his gang, it is a very important metric. So Anyway, keep your eye
No,
on
it
that.
is.
We keep your eye on, again, 9 trillion needs to be refinanced this year. And as we move closer to the second half of this, again, we'll be there before you know it. Trump and his administration, I think, really want to get ahead of that, because the drums are going to start beating at some point, right? And you're going to be hearing a lot more about that as we move through the year. So anyway, that's my take.
Good stuff, guys. This is invaluable information. I know Arthur said it was dry, but you should know about all this stuff because it does impact your future. So, and if we're getting into this tariff conversation for the better part of a year now, which is what I suspect is going to happen, because after this 90 days is up, there's going to be another extension, but not for the top players. And let me explain what I mean. If you take a look up in the nest there, yes, Poly Market. So the betting money is on Japan, South Korea, and Vietnam, 87, 81, and 81% respectively. Those are the chances that a deal will be reached with the United States. Now, the reason why the S&P was looking good this morning is because there were people that bought the dip yesterday when there was an enormous amount of trading going on around lunch, noontime Eastern yesterday. So that was helpful. But the other piece of this, guys, as I said yesterday, Diligent had a space. I was able, when he first opened it, to just offer my opinion, and that was he recorded it. That was a good space with good speakers, actually, and a lot of Krasenstein dragging. So listen to it for entertainment purposes only. Uh, Consumer confidence and all this talk of uncertainty is going to be eradicated once South Korea, Japan, and Vietnam, in no particular order, come to an agreement. Okay. Now they're all facing a baseline 10% tariff. Uh, but those countries, despite the fact that they're all located in Asia, they're also more Japan and South Korea allies of the United States, but they also manufacture a lot. Japan and South Korea, of course, in the car business alone, that's a significant chunk of their market. Uh, but on top of that, they surround China geographically, and they're providing a lot of the goods and services that we're buying. So that's going to hurt China, and that's going to help our cause. That's going to help the market stabilize. Okay, because the smart investors in the market know how critical Japan and South Korea are to the United States relationship with China, meaning that and South Korea and China and Japan, not just because of logistics, guys, not just because China's in their backyard. Yes, that's a huge part of it. And China's been dominating the Pacific Rim since World War II. I get that. But they're also, in a non-kinetic sense, competitors. Okay? There's a hyper level of competition between Japan and China and South Korea amongst each other. It just happens that South Korea and Japan are more uh, U.S. friendly. We don't have a military presence in China. We have a military presence in Japan and South Korea, right? So this stuff is good information for you guys just to disseminate. So RJ, you're up.
Hi guys, I'm just going to give you guys a different way of tariffs. Say you have a market that's at an all-time high, and you need trillions of dollars, and you say you have the ability to control a lot of the investment banks that control the world. If you can create a situation where the market will crash $12 trillion, and all the people on board in your country that have billions are aware that you're going to be doing that, you can short the market. You can purchase puts, and you can run the VIX over 50, and collect a good part of the $12 trillion loss in the market by shorting it. I really think Trump has these tariffs. I think you have to start looking at it as a diversion of it's almost like a switch. The U.S. needs a few more trillion. Turn on the tariff switch, crash the markets, boys. Do your short selling. Have you all collected your trillions? Okay, tariffs are off for now. It's like milking a cow. So I don't know why. I think people need to start looking at tariffs as a diversion, especially when they make no sense, like fentanyl in Canada and all that stuff. When something doesn't make sense and it potentially can ruin the world, the art of the deal here is that what you see is not what the purpose of why they did what they did. The money's already been made, by the way. These tariffs are almost, you know what? There are already trillions of dollars that were made recently. So, you know what? I don't think you have to worry about the tariffs because it's almost over. And there'll be deals, you know, like you get us more of this, we'll give you more of that. But the big tariff threat, in my opinion, is over as soon as the VIX went over 50.
Well, there's a 10% baseline tariff applied to everybody except China for the next 90 days. So for 90 days at minimum, maybe that could go up, maybe that could go down. So there's
Yeah.
revenue to be generated. That's I mean, it's not $600 billion, but it's still going to be a significant amount of money because I don't think people know how little money we were taking in from other countries. Uh, the,
Well, they just made 10 trillion though, right? So this is peanuts for them now at 10%. Woo-hoo-hoo. You know, at the end of the day, don't worry about tariffs. The whole point was to make the 10 trillion or 12 trillion. They've done it. They shorted the market. Even Warren Buffett was in cash, I think, with 4 billion. Like they all knew what was going on. It was telegraphed months ahead. We're going to turn off the crash switch.
well,
Imagine
China,
being able to control the world global market by one
yeah, but
statement.
you know
I will
you
tariff
know
the
who
world.
didn't know what was going on? China, and they just got played, and they just got caught with their pants down. That's a pretty significant player in the global market that didn't know what was going on. So
They
I think
believe they might have believed it. They might have believed the story about the tariffs, but it was the diversion. It was a classic diversion, and everybody fell into this. Everyone around the world was believing it. Not me, man. I made a lot of money yesterday in the market because I saw it and I was playing with the boys. You know, we make money. Guys that do trades, I trade a lot, and guys that trade a lot make money on diversions like that. We saw it.
well,
You
well, I
know,
think it was a little
so
bit of a bigger I think it was a little bit bigger than a divergence because you have a situation where for 1 week everybody thought Trump was crazy and that we were going to go into a recession. And but who didn't? Who believed that? All the traders I hear in these financial spaces on here that were convinced that Trump didn't know what he was doing, that he's going to slow walk the United States into a recession, that Besant is trying to devalue currency like China does, that to get a better interest rate on the debt. And I heard all the blackpilling and all the doomerism for a week on here, but yet that was not just left alone on social media. I heard leaders of other countries in Europe and in Asia saying the same thing. I think a lot of people took this seriously, and China really boxed themselves out of all of this. And I don't think it was as big. If it was a diversion, then that was a happy byproduct of what went on. I'm happy people made money. I'm happy people bought. But again,
oh my God, 10 trillion was made, man. You make money on both sides of the market, right? You bring a market down by 12 trillion. Someone made 12 trillion. Okay, you make it go up but you can't just keep going up all the time. And not only did you make the money of the 10 trillion going down, now the U.S. through its whether it's JP Morgan or Morgan. So we'll find out about which hedge funds. It's obviously been spread out, but now they can put it back into the market and make another 10 trillion on the way up. So if you got trillions of dollars that you got to find to pay your tax break on the richest people in the world, he's done it already, man. That's the art of the deal. He did it. He actually, if you think of what he's done, it's pretty amazing, and he's done it. So there's no he's got the market, and the same thing with the oil. He wanted cheap oil. Look what he got. He's got cheap oil. He's got Canada and the rest of the world giving him his oil for nothing, or at least at margin. Hey, the art of the deal. It's there. He just proved it.
And seems like nobody read it. That's another thing too, guys. For those of you that aren't interested in oil pricing or don't know a lot about it, I've got to tell you something. $60 a barrel oil for crude is good. Okay, you know what that means? Translation into English: 250 a gallon and under, or what it should be. I know certain states like California will always price gouge or what have you, or touristy spots of the country. Uh, you don't want oil that's worthless, but you want it at I mean, guys, $60 a barrel. I think Trump is pleased as anything with that. That's good. Okay. There's no embargo on. We don't have any issues in the Middle East of, that outside of the Houthi pirates at this particular time. This creates stability. Okay. So I understand why it's something you should check every day, though, because energy is what this all comes down to. Cheap, I don't want to say cheap, but moderately priced crude oil is good. Okay. When it trades at a fair price, the world prospers. It doesn't need to trade at a below market price. Okay. Especially the oil in the Western Hemisphere, stuff that's not coming from Saudi Arabia or other Pakistan or other unsavory places in the world. We want to have a manageable crude oil per barrel price cap. Okay, so that's a big piece of this. So CNBC, guys, is even reporting that quote, these are definitely low numbers. New data shows inflation eased in March, smashing expectations for the second straight month. Under President Trump, America is back, but inflation is not. Meanwhile, there's a lot of. Let me just check an app here on my phone. And let's see, do we see a lot of green? Yep. Futures, discretionary, raw materials, energy. It's all, yesterday it was in the red up until midday. It's all in the green now. It looks like Christmas, guys. Green, green, green. Okay. And those candlesticks are looking good.
Buying Baytex yesterday would have got you 22%, guys, in 3 hours. And I mean that's big income. So
Which one? Say that again.
Baytex petroleum,
Yeah.
the people in Alberta will be familiar with that one. I mean, you could have bought the S&P at VIX over 52 and get a guaranteed 10%. I always buy the market when the VIX goes over 50. It's basically that's capitulation point, because margin calls you need margin calls to get it over 50. So that's usually near to the end. So I don't know if people do trades here, but for people that trade like me, that's money. That these are golden times. There are trillions of dollars that were made yesterday in the USA. I'm talking trillions. He doesn't have to worry about paying his buddies now trillions. He's got the money to do it. It's good. We have nothing to worry about. Maybe just finding a government that'll be non-global in nature would be what I think we should focus on.
I'm looking back, guys, at Warren Buffett. I'm looking at an article that this is kind of relevant. It's from January 22nd of this year. Warren Buffett, so the day after, or 2 days after Trump got inaugurated again. Warren Buffett company shuts down international oil trading operations. Okay, international. That was from Reuters. Pilot company will now focus on fuel retail. Okay, so that was 3 months ago, thereabouts. Warren Buffett makes great moves in the market. You should track what he's doing just out of a hobby, because guy doesn't miss. What you think of him or otherwise is different. But uh, so look up. Let me give you. I got into Japan and South Korea. I have an updated chart on trade deficits. A lot of these numbers you've heard, and there's some irony in this. So I was saying 240 billion. It's actually the best number I could find. It's 270 billion dollar surplus China has with the United States. So just to give you some perspective, Ireland, which is a country of 5 million people, okay, they buy more American product at scale than China does, which has 2 billion people. Okay. So tell me there's not a trade disparity. Let me give you some other players, because we're talking about deals with Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, etc. Basically all of Asia except China. Vietnam had a $113 billion trade deficit with the United States, or has one currently. Taiwan, 67. These are all in billions, guys. Japan, 62. South Korea, 60. Dump a call, excuse me, guys. So, so the Anglo countries that in Mexico, by the way, somebody asked me about that in a DM. It's 157. So these all need to be modified uh, sooner rather than later. See, these are the countries, guys, you don't necessarily need to get to parity with tariffs. Um, you have to remember, I still, tariffs are not going to go by the wayside, because some of these countries we've been breaking even or in the red with them for many, many years. And I know there's smaller countries that you don't think we do a lot of business with, but we do. Or if they have a particular crop or product, like what was the talk yesterday, Madagascar, because of vanilla, and they do make some garments, right? So you'd think Madagascar, what does it matter what we tariff well, it matters a lot, because they have a particular item or particular product, vanilla, which is used for all things culinary and confectionery, okay, and other things, that is significant, and they have a lot of it, and that's their export, and that's what they make more money with us. So even though it's a third world shithole on the surface, uh, the reason why they have anything is because of their abundance of vanilla. So hence they sell it at a higher rate than they probably should. So I still think a baseline tariff of 10 to 20%, depending on the country and depending on the commerce that's done in said country, needs to be instituted going forward, no matter what happens. Guys, at minimum, it's revenue generation. Okay, we've got a lot of debt in this country, and we need to collect money, because we haven't been. This is why Trump's obsessed about this stuff, guys. He's been talking about tariffs as a tool since the late 80s, since the Oprah Winfrey show, talking about tariffing Japan 25% on VCRs, talking about tariffing the Saudis at 25% for the amount of oil they sell into the United States. This isn't something that's going to be. I don't think it's going to be as extreme as Liberation Day, but there's going to be a happy medium found in all of this, and what that is, I can't say at the moment. We're just speculating right now.
Can I add one more statement here?
Yes.
The tariffs, by the way, that Trump's doing. This is the art of the deal, part 2. You see, the U.S. has got the largest GDP in the world for a reason. In most part, it. I'll give Canada as an example. You know what? If you ask for flour to make bread, okay, and you say, listen, I'm going to be making a lot of bread. I'm going to be making bread for the whole world, but I don't have the flour. So at least I can't get it as cheaply as what you're producing. I'll tell you what, I will take in a massive amount of your flour, and then we trade that way. Now, in turn, the States, they make bread with it. Now, where you collect cents on the flour, you can collect dollars on the bread. And if you do that with Vietnam and you do that with other countries, now what you say, well, what does Vietnam and China have to offer? Slave labor, cheap labor. Now you got the ingredients to make your product. You got the cheap labor to make your products, as long as you're the dude, the USA, I would say, that is making the products that are selling for, like, give me the aluminum, I'll give you an F-35. Okay? Yeah, it's 30 million for an F-35. Well, 60. I need a margin of 30 million for my profit. I'll give you 500,000 for your aluminum. Okay? You see, the states, these tariffs, all Trump is trying to do, he wants the flour cheaper. He wants the slave labor cheaper. That's art of the deal part two. Not only did he just take in $12 trillion, maybe I'm not going to say 12 or 10, the majority of the 12, okay? He's now asking for his slaves to work for cheaper. He's asking for everybody in the world, give me my substrates for my products for cheaper. What a man. He's going to make the U.S. so rich by taking advantage of everything. That's the president.
Just remember how we were taken advantage of for many, many years by pretty much the whole world. Look at these.
No, you
Look at
weren't.
these. Hold
You
hold
weren't.
on, RJ. Listen to these trade
You wouldn't
imbalances
be
here.
number one in the world if you were.
China 270 billion just in 1 year, and their army's only grown since they came into the World Trade Organization. Who's been funding that? The United States taxpayer. Mexico 157 billion, plus all the drugs that come up into our country, plus all the cartel crime that comes into our country. That's being taken advantage of. The 20 million people came into the United States when Biden became president from various countries all over the world. That's being taken advantage of.
It costs money to hire 1.4 billion slaves. You know what I mean?
What are the slaves you're
Hey,
talking about, though? What are you referring to?
cheap labor.
What's
Your iPhone doesn't cost you if you build all your iPhones in the US, I'll be honest with you, it's going to cost you $3,000.
It's all right. People finance them anyway. That's what the phone stores want.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you want to stay number one, which you do, yeah, I agree that China's now starting to take advantage. They've stolen your technology now, though, right? So effectively, what you need to do now, they're making the products themselves. You see, China's in the position now saying, you know what? We're not going to ask you to. We're not going to give you our substrates and our cheap labor to make the products.
We don't want it anymore. That's the whole point of this. We don't want their.
They don't, and you know what? To be honest, they don't
They're
need.
making stuff with.
They don't need you anymore. They can make products just as well as you can.
They do need
You gave them the technology.
They do need it. RJ, hold
you
on.
guys have given them the technology.
Let's have a conversation. Hold on. They did steal the technology, and they do need our markets. Their business model is never going to change. They're export, export, export. Okay, look at their reaction the last 2 days. Who are they going to sell these iPhones to? Zimbabwe? Denmark? Who buys their shit? Who's making their shit now? Robots. They don't even like the slave thing, while it's been true for 30 years. Robots. When we have manufacturing here, we're not hiring people to put little screws into iPhones here. We're hiring people to service the robots that are going to make.
They're going to sell. They're going to sell everything to Europe.
No, they won't.
So
what money?
all
Europe, look at their economies. What money do they have? Look at Germany. They have no money. They can't even pay their NATO obligation.
You just watch. You know what? You got India. It's got 1.4 billion. You got China 1.3 billion. At the end of the day, you can be 400 million people and have all the money, but if the rest of the world will trade without you in the equation, you'll never win.
Won't. They don't. There's
in
no
other words, I don't think these tariffs. I think these tariffs are benefiting the states temporarily to try to get a better deal on substrates, but in reality, I think Trump has already made the money he needed to make in large part. The tariffs are, they'll tweak things here and there, but guys, don't worry. This is all going to be good. The money's already been made. That's all I'm saying. And the U.S. will maintain its role as either first or second, highest GDP in the world for decades to come.
So just some perspective, US $20 trillion a year in spending, all of the EU combined 19.4 trillion. There is no other market that can replace us. You'd have to have a cluster of the entire planet, and these are bad economies with bad currency, whereas our fiat is going to get stronger. Patrick, you're in.
But if you lose, you know what? If you
No,
lose your slave
I'm moving
labor,
on.
and
Hold
if
on.
you lose your cheap substrates,
So this is what happens, dude. When you want to overtalk me because you think you're right, you get muted. You don't get booted, but you get muted. There's a period there. Patrick, go ahead.
Couple things. I missed the first half of the space, and I regret that because I really wanted to hear your opinion on all of this. But I did want to mention, I just looked up when China joined the World Trade Organization. It was December 11, 2001. And if anyone remembers back when the markets crashed after the tech bubble, we were what, 7 years, 8 years into NAFTA. It lines up so perfectly, that's when things started really getting bad. And from there, we ended up in the subprime. It's like every 7 years, something happens, right? 7, 8 years, we've had a crisis. And so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. But let me say this. I agree with everything you said, Gads, about robots making those things. We will create the robots and manage the robots, kind of like McDonald's has changed, right? Now they have point of sales that are these kiosks. We don't need the workers to sit there and take orders and do all of these. At some point, it may all be food may all be automated, and we'll manage the robots that do there'll be tech people that do that. And with a dwindling population in the country, potentially, if that doesn't reverse course, we're gonna need robots to do a lot of these things. And then, so as far as China making this, what they're going to sell some knockoff iPhone that nobody wants. Okay, they're not going to be able to sell it into the markets. Okay, they're not going to be able to get the components that go in it. And so what? After, you might say, well, they make, no, they get that stuff from all over, and if they can't produce them because they don't have the know-how, technology changes every other day, right? So they might be able to make toothbrushes, right? But it's they're going to have to raise the price to make up for what they're not getting in all the other things, right? So, and they're going to crash and burn long before any of that is even tenable, right? So, if they don't fix their structural problems in other areas of their other areas of their economy, then it's not going to get better. Now, that I do worry big time that they're not going to give in, right? I don't think they're bluffing. I think they want to figure out where that sweet spot is that we can tolerate, right? Where it's going to have to be managed over time. This might be a 10-year thing where, okay, they're going to tariff to make up for what they're not getting. Is there a sweet spot where everybody just stops? Do they ride out Trump for 4 years until somebody comes in and, undoes it, or Congress acts, or something like that? And those are all possibilities. Will that stop us from doing what we need to do? I don't think so. We've made great deals with other people where we've offset it already with every other nation we trade with. So,
Well, at the rate the administration's going, Patrick, I don't know if China's going to be able to wait this out, because look what's just happened to them in a day, and now they look terrible. Let me just I'll let you finish, but this is important. I wanted to say this earlier. When you hear the pushback over the last week that, the United, like from people like Peter Schiff and a lot of the libertarians that seem to like this slave labor and tablets being made by robots in Beijing. This is very, very important, guys. When Trump says bring back manufacturing to the United States, it's what Patrick alluded to. Okay, whether it's AI, whether it is robots, we're not hiring people. This isn't the 1950s in the Midwest. We're not putting screws into iPhones. It's the automation that needs monitoring. That's what we're going to train people with. That's when he says bring manufacturing back. Uh, it's the 21st century mindset here. You have to remember something, guys. Yes, these countries like China and Mexico employ and India imply various forms of slave labor here and there. Okay, of course. Okay, uh, they don't have laws and stuff like that and oversight. But a lot of this stuff, particularly in Asia, is not even made by humans anymore. That people are complaining about Trump tariffing. Like Rand Paul is making an ass of himself the last week, complaining about, uh, we need to have free market trade because that's the best. Tariffs don't work. Well, we're tariffing products made by robots in China in large part. I don't know what the percentage is. I don't even know if it's relevant, but that's what we're doing. I hear nothing but population decline in Asia, and then everybody's talking about and that these peasants, which is 70% of the population in China, they're not even lucky enough to have factory work. We'll get into that another day, but anytime you hear Dr. Seuss there talk about it, they have these diverse caste systems, even in the impoverished levels of their society, that we're not competing against 8 and 9-year-old Chinese slaves anymore. We're competing against robots with the technology, as the other guy was saying, that they stole from us and either improved it or changed it or whatever. So that's a big part of Trump's calculus, guys, in all of this. You have to understand something. It's man and machine now. That's the game. Okay, it's organic and AI. That's the game. High stakes right here is what we're talking about. Patrick, finish up, man. Sorry.
Sorry, my mind wandered. Yeah, I don't think I have any much more to say other than I missed the first half of the space. I was really curious. Can you do a quick recap summary of the last 48 hours? If
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
asking too much, then
no,
sorry.
it's not. I'll go quick. Then Nostra, Nostra and Janet. That's the batting order, but it's recorded if you want to listen to it again. It's, I just basically did a recap of a really great pincer move that Trump and Bissett just did on China in regards to them looking really isolated right now, and we got into markets a little bit, and the fact that the next time a U.S. president tells you to buy the dip, right? Uh, we looked at it's kind of an overview, and the theme was the strength of the U.S. consumer market and how that it still dictates the way things go in the world. Talked about how Japan, South Korea, Vietnam to a lesser extent seem to be a priority in making a deal with the United States. And I was trying to emphasize to everybody, it's not about getting the tariffs down to zero per se, right? Because when you're like this, Patrick, this is very, very topical because it looks like South Korea is going to be one of the first countries to make a deal. And we do have a very significant trade deficit with them, even though they're an ally. The reason why Trump doesn't necessarily want tariffs to go down to zero, which he's never actually said. I think a lot of people are presuming that, and I can understand that because he's been so hard up on tariffs. But South Korea, we spend 20 billion a year to protect the military presence there, and obviously that number's gone up, but it's been since 1952. That's going to factor into whatever deal he does. I heard the early rumblings that South Korea wanted to invest in an LNG pipeline in Alaska as part of this negotiation. Trump's going to say, well, just last year alone, Biden spent 20 billion having our military presence there. And that's been going on for 75 years, South Korea. I'll tell you what, we'll stay at a baseline tariff level on cars or whatever for 10%, but you need to start paying for some of this. Now, Patrick, when he deals with Europe, for example, what's another thing Trump's been obsessing about, even in his first term? NATO doesn't pay its fair share. Okay. Germany in particular is still not meeting their obligation. The only countries that are meeting their obligation in NATO, as far as I know, are the United States, Poland, and Hungary, I think, are the three countries that are paying whatever they're 2%, 5%. When he deals with Maloney next week, she's coming on the 17th, the Italian prime minister. He's going to say, okay, you're the first EU member to come here. Let's see, Georgia Maloney. Italy has to pay 4% of NATO. You guys have been delinquent for 20 years. So, and I don't know what the commerce is between the US and Italy. I'm sure cars is part of it, but not a lot. Anyway, that will factor in. So he's got to take these countries that he has big trade deficits with one at a time. But I do think ultimately this is where it gets confusing. There's going to be a baseline blanket, like 10 to 20% tariff on probably of these 70 countries, probably 20 to 30. Everybody from China to like Denmark, all the Asian countries, all the European countries, most of the African countries. All right, like where we get a lot of our coffee from, or spices or whatever, uh, some agriculture even. There has to be some big. He has to count on X amount of revenue generation. It's not about zero tariff. So this is the learning process we're in. Is that helpful, Patrick? That was kind of the rundown.
Yeah, no, they're very helpful. Were there did anything happen this morning? I haven't looked yet.
Well, inflation basically is did not meet expectations, so that's a good thing. We were expecting a 3% boost in inflation in March. It's about 2.4%, so that's a win. Inflation is not rising as they were modeling or forecasting, so that's good. Uh, the investor guy Arthur was in here. He was saying that he's kind of agreeing with my point. The Fed's not going to adjust interest rates. Yes, because Powell hates Trump. That's part of it. But also, I was trying to get everybody in here to understand that the reason why we didn't have $8 a gallon gas when we probably should have during Biden's tenure, because of the war in Ukraine and other things, is because the Fed was unnecessarily cutting interest rates in 2021, 2022, when he shouldn't have been. We still had a recession during Biden, but it was a very mini recession because of all the masking agents that was going on. The masking agents include cutting interest rates when you shouldn't be. Uh, oil didn't get up to, even when Putin invaded Ukraine, oil was not up to like $100 a gallon. And I made the point that during the bubble in '08, we had, I think it was June of 2008, we had $100 a barrel crude oil, uh, right before Obama got in. And you have to think to yourself, well, why is that happening? It was before ISIS got active in Syria. Okay. We were kind of done with the large part of destroying Afghanistan and Iraq. We were getting out of the Bush years. Like, we have no kinetic war going on. The Middle East for now is quiet. Why is oil $100 a barrel? It should have been over 100 when Biden was in office. It wasn't. So you got all these different things going on. There's been gross manipulation of the economy by the Federal Reserve from 2021 to 2024. With that, yeah, good. We'll go to
Let me ask
Nostra.
this. Let me ask this. So, in the last 2 days, I've seen two narratives kind of flowing through the ether here online. And so, one, we have the MAGA fanaticism about, oh, he's doing all these great things, and kind of. And I will say that some of it may not have substance, and some of it may, right? Because it's kind of lost in translation. But like, a couple in the last couple of months, I think it was Besant. Somebody was there's a gentleman that did a lot of narrative videos that have been floating around, and I believe the story was that they wanted the Fed obviously to lower interest rates, and so and I'm sorry, I'm still having my coffee here, so my thoughts are not fully together. But there was that one piece where Doge was going to come in. They obviously are going to cut out some of the fat. We're trying to get that debt down, right? And you remember what I was talking about. We've talked about this on Spaces. Damn it, I forget what the piece of it was, but it was financial.
Have your coffee. Have your coffee, Patrick. Let me go to
Let,
Nostra and I'll get you back
let
up.
me add this last piece in. So then on the flip side, you're seeing today, they're saying, well, the bond market was the reason that Trump backed off some of the tariff decisions. I don't believe that personally, but I don't think he'll back off of anything really, unless it absolutely made sense. But so CNBC and the left media is pushing that narrative. And so did you have any thoughts in terms of, again, what the ultimate goal that we thought that they were trying to accomplish going into this, which I
Yeah.
believe was the truth, versus now this counter narrative? Did you get what I'm saying? Like, there's been two kind of threads of the last 48 hours, trying to predict or outline
Yeah.
why things are happening.
Yeah, well, people are going to say he backed off because of the bond market. I agree with you. I don't believe because they have to. There's no way he's ever going to get credit for being an intuitive, forward thinker. So they have to weave some sort of thing like, but it's a canard, dude. I agree with you. That's not why he backed off. He got what he wanted. People have to understand something. It has importance in private business, and it has importance in our lives because some of us trade, some of us invest. Have mutual funds or whatever. Your work sets you up in retirement. I've said this, and surprisingly, a lot of people haven't disagreed with me. Trump doesn't give a shit about the stock market, guys. I don't think he ever has. Like, he didn't make his money in that realm. He was around those guys being in New York. He understands the significance of it. But the S&P 500, guys, is not a report how the S&P 500, which is like the top 500 stocks, or the Nasdaq, which is tech heavy. That's in his mind. Okay, you could disagree with the logic or say that's bullshit. Or I'm just telling you how I think the dude thinks. Go to the White House and argue with him if you think this is incorrect. I don't think Trump thinks that's a snapshot of the economy at large. Now, people like Warren Buffett will disagree with that. People like Jamie Dimon will disagree with that. Uh, I don't know who the Goldman Sachs guy is. I can't remember his name. Or Larry Fink with Black. They'll disagree with him on that. That's just how the guy thinks. And right now, he's playing with house money, so to speak. Okay. He knows the stock market should not be the only indicator of the economy. We're talking about bigger things, guys. We're talking about the devaluing Chinese currency, or we're talking about boxing out China, who right now have tariffs north of 100%, and they're the only ones that have those at the moment. Okay. And we're talking about the fact that the world has to understand that China's never going to change their business models. I was trying to tell the other guy, RJ, he's still here, RJ. I was trying to tell him in that exchange, they're export, export, export. They need the United States market. They can't shift business to Europe. We're a $20 trillion a year customer. Europe combined is less than that still. And they can't afford to buy the volume. They don't have 350 million consumers combined, like all those countries, all of Europe. So yes, it's very nice and it's very easy to say, oh, well, China, they're pretty pragmatic. They'll just sell to another market. Oh, good luck with that. I'm not saying they won't do that. I'm saying they're not going to be able to fund their military, their black ops AI, their nefarious activities off the backs of the Danish or off the backs of the French, because they have no need or utility to buy at volume what the United States buys. This is a numbers game, guys. I understand there's 2 billion people in India. Okay. We're only 360 million. But of those 2 billion in India, how many of them live in poverty? How many of them don't have Amazon Prime accounts? How many of them live in a jungle and shit outside? Even a homeless person in the United States that has nothing but the clothes on their back and the pills in their pocket can shit in a shelter tonight. Okay? That's the big disparity between India and really 70% of the globe and the United States. Even our poor live like kings in the US. Our poor have cell phones. Our homeless have cell phones. A lot of children in China and India don't drink fresh, clean water every day. There's no Poland Spring bottles at there's no food pantry around them. We have to understand what an optimal position the United States is in. And all this stuff with homeless people is tragic, but I'm just trying to paint a picture. We have power that these other countries don't have, and that includes first world countries throughout the globe. Nostradamus, you've been waiting. Go ahead. I got to bounce in 15 minutes, guys, so I'll try and talk less. Go ahead, Nostra.
I'll try and keep it short. Man, I almost lost my train of thought there. um, gosh, I came in when you were talking to RJ earlier, and I want to go back to that a little bit, and just reiterate that something I believe you had mentioned, and I don't know the exact percentage, but I think we're responsible for 34% of China's GDP, just as a customer of their products. Having access to putting things upon our shelves, and I think you covered it right there, even with the homeless, just at the last part of what you were saying. Having access just to put things on our shelves in this world is a privilege. It's not a right. It's not free trade. It's a damn privilege. I don't think anybody in this space can name one company or one, excuse me, one country that doesn't feed off the American tit worldwide. We have been assisting, our politicians have been basically selling shares of this country to almost every other economy in the world, and it's almost as if they're divvying it up to enrich themselves. That's what I believe personally. I believe that politics has turned into a way to sell a piece of the U.S. to a foreign power to enrich themselves, and I think it's been going on for quite a long time. The tariffs, man, there's so much to cover because you got the child labor, you got so many things that the people are. I can't believe they're struggling with it. I can't believe they're struggling with it. You know, Asia doesn't have the value of life that we put on our lives, our children, our people here. Um, they have bodies and machinery there. What they don't have is their own running economy in the nature that we do. We have what they call American innovation. We have some of the brightest individuals, thank God, hopefully still in the world. And I think you touched upon that, Gads, that I think tomorrow we could shut China off and do what we did in World War II, which is innovate our way into automation. China doesn't have a whole lot of, all the, I think RJ mentioned the substrates. All that comes from Africa. All you got to do is negotiate a deal. China's not going to need it if they haven't got us to sell it to begin with. So that's going to crash. And I heard somebody say yesterday, I forget the person who it was, but Xi Jinping's whole life, his whole political life is dependent upon the employment some very unruly countrymen over there. And once their employment starts to suffer, and once it's already a dire situation over there, and I'll leave it with this. And you touched on this as well. Their navy won't be getting built half as fast once we get this straightened out. And I think one thing that you'd mentioned about Trump is, yeah, he doesn't see the stock market as a barometer in this country because he's a builder. He's not a money mover. I think, yeah, I think the stock market is going to reflect the nature in which we trade and restructure the trade rather than driving it. I believe that the creators drive this country, not the money movers. The money movers, in my opinion, are just ticks on the ass of the American public. But I'll leave it there. Thanks for letting me speak.
You're welcome, bud. Good comments. Yeah, if you guys think Dave Portnoy with his open air therapy sessions of how he's losing millions of dollars while he's sitting around in his underwear beating off trading stocks all day and watching college hoops is what Americans go by. I mean, we shouldn't even be having this conversation because that's not what drives the economy. By the way, even smart guys like Jamie Dimon and Bill Ackman, they're all anti-tariff. Okay, because they understand, they completely take emotion out of it.
They're
Okay.
the ticks too, Gads. They're the ticks. Our country would move forward. I'm sorry for interrupting, but our
Sorry.
country would move forward with the same level of innovation, just not the same level of investment.
Yeah, they just have a lot of influence. Obviously, J.P. Morgan. I mean, that's they have a lot of influence, but you have to understand something that I would say 40% of Trump's base invests in the stock market, or what we would call day trading or casual investment. Like I said, was it yesterday? Maybe Tuesday when I had a space. Yeah, Tuesday I had a long one. Uh, I'm out in middle America in the blue collar, not middle America. I'm out in the middle class, in blue collar America here on the Atlantic coast. And I can tell you guys, nobody's fucking talking about the stock market. They're talking about trade. People don't understand when I'm at the supply houses or whatever, picking up material. They didn't know, they don't know we have a trade imbalance with Ireland of all countries. People are learning. They're understanding about how we're getting fucked over. They're not, they don't care that Tesla shares dropped, or, uh, they don't understand that our debt's coming up for examination of refinance on interest. And these are people who vote like we do, guys. And it's not my job to tell them they're right or wrong. Everybody has to get to that point on their own path. And they're talking about trade, guys. They're not talking about stocks. Okay? Those are the very casual, superficial conversations I'm having in my little corner of the universe right now. So, no, we don't give a shit about day trading. It's not even relevant to the bigger picture here. It's anyway, they expose themselves. Patrick, why don't I go to you, because you had a few questions and comments, and Janet, you'll probably be the last speaker.
Yeah, so I figured it out. It was uh, the refinancing of the debt was the purpose of crashing the markets. Do you believe that narrative? That's number one. And then the other part was just that guy, and I'll come back to you once you answer that.
No, I think the ultimate. Well, I'll answer it and you tell me, because it's not so simple as yes or no with crashing the markets. I think he made a big attempt at putting China out of business. Now, if crashing the markets came as part of that, I mean, that's what the Democrats are going to go with on a talking point, then so be it. But that's my answer, Patrick. I think that was an operation because he knew exactly what China was going to do. They were going to escalate. And they put themselves in a terrible position. Go ahead.
So maybe crashing the markets isn't the word, but that's the way the left is framing it. Although I've heard it from others. So the point is, apply downward pressure on the stock market. I think it creates liquidity too. People are going to go to hard assets, right? Because there's fear in the markets. People aren't trusting it now. They can't trust it when Trump, because he's pushing it down, and all the whatever because their freaking reason is for not seeing
Look at gold.
buying opportunity, right? So they're going to go into hard assets, which I think is where it's going to create. That money's going to go to the manufacturing, to rebuilding some of this stuff, because there are better opportunities right now to diversify where everybody's putting money. So I think it helps in that regard. And then it also, I think, if it causes other things within the markets to change, example, bonds and other things, money's going to move around a little bit, and maybe they can generally predict where it would go. I think that's accurate. If you're not in the markets, you're doing something else, right? Locking in an interest rate or high interest rate or something to, and some other financial tool. But so those are the thoughts that I had last night when we were all chatting this out in another space. But the gentleman's name is Victor Davis Hanson, or David Hanson. Those are the videos that I've been watching that I found insightful about Trump in general, and then where we've been headed kind of financially, and what at least the narrative that's out there is a competing narrative to what we're hearing from CNBC in the last 2 days, right?
Right on. I'm very familiar with Victor Davis Hanson. I read his stuff on Daily Signal. A couple times a week, he's got a column that's pretty good. I do recommend everybody check him out. That's a good guy to follow. I think he's got a pretty good handle on this as well, Patrick, and I think I agree with him with most everything. The story is this, guys, and Janet. I think I got to get in the truck. I can keep this space going. I'll probably need a couple co-hosts. I've got about let's see, probably a 40-minute commute to
If you want to
lovely.
co-host me, go ahead. And sorry for bumping the line, Janet. I didn't mean to step on you. I realized you've had your hand up forever.
No, No, we're all patient here. I can keep this going, guys. I got like a 40-minute commute to lovely Auburn, Maine today. So I'm happy to keep it open. I just we'll see what happens. I'll get some co-hosts up. I do encourage everybody up here to grab a mic and just weigh in. You don't have to interact with me directly. You can interact with each other, of course. I just this is a very exciting time, and I know a lot of people might not know a lot about this stuff, and that keeps you from wanting to talk. But I'm not an expert either, guys. So you can all have an opinion on the direction of the United States economy. That's your right as a citizen. You don't need to go to business school or know about economics. Just what's your read of the situation? All right, I'll co-host a few people. Janet, what's going on? You had your hand up, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I had my hand up before Patrick or Nostradani, but I figured you were putting me on the back burner because my hand went up right after that person spoke and pissed me off. So it was probably a good thing because I took some notes after you said
Who
you kept
who
passing me up.
who,
So that's
who,
okay. But
who pissed you off though?
I'm
Who
fair.
pissed you off? I'm sorry.
But it's no,
No.
it's fine. I just wanted to say that I am tired of people thinking they tell us that we're the big pushy people that try to control everyone's lives, blah, 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 and that we'll push our weight around and all this stuff. And then they get mad when we don't give them money to help them run whatever crappy country they're going to run. I think this is bullshit. Trump is leveling the playing field for everyone. Either you step up to the plate and you play and you win for your people of your country, or you fall to the wayside, period. That's the way it's supposed to be. It's survival of the fittest. You do that with your own kids. When you send them to school, you want them to be the best they can be in class. You want them to be first in everything in sports, even if they can't be, but you want them to feel like they need to try. You want them to be winners. And how are we supposed to raise a country of winners if we're always just handing out the free cookies all the time and we're not expecting anything in return? That's the part that I love about Doge. Doge, hand in hand with what Trump is doing with our economy and these tariffs, is leveling the playing field. He's cutting off the people off the tit, like that Nostradani was talking about earlier, and giving it back to us, the wallet, so that we, the people, can make decisions on how our money is supposed to be spent. Every person in this space that I know and I've talked to in private, on DMs or whatever, all want to help homeless. We all want to help veterans. We all want to help people in our community. We're not stingy old bags that don't give a crap and just say, screw everyone, okay? But we want it done fairly. And Doge has already proven that we can't trust these people to dole the money out fairly. When it goes back to us in our communities, then we can actually do something with the money. We can help people in our states, and that's how it should be. Federal companies or people in the federal government shouldn't be going around saying, oh, we're going to help people in Florida, or we're going to help people in California or other countries, period. We should come first. That's what we voted for. 77 million people voted for Trump to fix this disgusting mess that we knew we were in, and it's starting to pay off. And the only ones I hear bitching and moaning are the ones that are sucking hind tit and making bank off of our tax dollars. They're suing, they're taking Trump to court, they're doing everything they can to keep their wallets fat and our veterans without, period. I mean, I can't help it. I just get so frustrated about it. But thank you for letting me sit at the back of the room for a little bit to calm down. But the thing is, the playing field is getting level, and it's up to us to support our president in our states and in our communities and help him get his agenda passed and try to share real information, real answers to some of the problems that we've had, and to keep fighting for Doe cleaning house. That's what I had. But thank you for letting me speak.
You're welcome. Okay. I think we'll go niece and then threat. Okay.
Yeah, hey Gads, thank you so much. Just a couple of quick bullet points here. I put in the bubble below that Johnson and Thune had a little mini presser about a half hour ago together. That's important to show that the Senate and the House are eye to eye, that uh, Johnson saying he really believes they've got the votes to pass this. That is excellent news for the market and all of us, and for President Trump's mandate. Side note off of this conversation, he just put out a truth that he is going to be drafting papers to stop all federal funding for any city or state that allows sanctuary cities. I am thrilled about that because, you know, Gaz, I'm in Illinois and that's going to affect us, but I say bring it on. And the last thing I want to say is, please, people, keep your eye on the Freedom Caucus. I understand they're fiscal hawks and they bloviate on that and they get elected on that, but this is just my take, and I think it's with me, is that this is a once in a lifetime chance. Donald Trump is saying, fuck it. He does not care. He's going for broke. And that's what I voted for, and I couldn't be happier to see it every damn day. But these people, the Republicans on our side that are taking a stand and saying, no, it's not enough spend or a cutting of spending. We need to do this. I'm tired of this shit. I'm tired of it. We all understand we have a $36 trillion debt. Let this man work. He knows what he's doing. And that's all I'm saying is respectfully keep your eye on them. And when they start playing their games, because they've all been in Congress long enough to know what they're doing. They've gaslit us for too long. Don't let it happen. So that's all I wanted to say. Thanks, Gads. Great space as always.
Thank you. Yes, I hope there's food left for you with J.D. Pritzker as your governor. I hope there's food left on the shelf at the grocery store, because that fat fuck looks like he eats it all. But no, good point. Now you guys know why I have I'm so hard up to expose Massey, because part of this big beautiful bill, or is going to go in the direction of this $1 trillion in cutting of spending that Trump plans on doing. Doge is already well on its way to doing that. You know, these guys like Rand Paul and Tom, these libertarians, these fiscal hawks, why aren't they introducing all the stuff that Elon Musk has been doing, guys, by the way? People like Thomas Massey, Chip Roy, who's that other guy? I like him, but Andy Harris, I think his name is, from Maryland. They could enact legislation that they could have done their own Doge with bills. You know, write a bill auditing the Department of Education, which is about to get axed. You know, they've had all this power, and guess what? If it's legislation, it's law. Once the president, you think Trump? Oh, the Freedom Caucus is giving me legislation that's going to demolish the Department of Education. Of course, he's going to sign it. He couldn't get the pen in his hand fast enough. So that's the other thing. Why aren't they doing that? Why is Elon Musk and his team of nerds doing what they couldn't do? Right? So where's the fit? You know, I don't understand what the problem is here. Why are they standing as Nice was alluding to, why are they standing in the way of this big, beautiful bill? I don't know. Well, I'll let you guys figure that out. Threat, go ahead, buddy.
Hey, Threat, are you there?
Threat, that's you, bud. Yep.
Yep. Hey, sorry about that. I didn't hear my name. I found it kind of interesting. The was it RJ or JR, whatever that fellow's name was. And I'm no economics expert. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be and blab on, but I think he still thinks that he's still thinking of the America is going to remain and continue to be just a consumer economy that's only been built off of debt and no longer producing real things that generate work and wealth, like machinery, etc. I mean, anybody who listens to Trump for the last 8 years knows what direction he's taken the economy. He wants to, he doesn't want to bring back necessarily manufacturing that's producing, widgets for people to buy in, dollar store. He's pumping up steel. He's pumping up coal, all these things that are needed to produce things like machinery, mining, obviously the oil industry, oil and gas exploration. And of course, the chip manufacturing is obviously really huge. But point being, transitioning our economy back from just a consumer-based economy to an economy that builds stuff that the world needs. And I don't think you need to be super smart, super economist to see that and to understand how critically important and beneficial that's going to be for the country and for people going forward. Because now, when you're a young 20-year-old, 22-year-old coming out of college with your first degree, you have options. You don't have to be a barista because you can't, because the other 50 million college graduates with a bachelor degree are all vying for the same corporate job. Well, maybe you go work in the factory, at a union wage for 30, 35, 40 bucks an hour. So he's recreating a whole different world for the United States, which has obvious global impacts. But to sit there and think that, I don't know. I'll leave it there because I'm starting to ramble a little bit. But those are just my thoughts.
Well, good. No rambling. I understood everything you were saying, and I think Threat. I agree with you and some other people. I don't know when you popped in. They kind of weighed in on it. I don't think he wants to be buying at the volume he is from China anyway, due to those human rights violations. And he knows that these products are made by slaves and robots. Now, many of you have questioned, why is he being so nice to Tim Cook? Well, who's head of Apple and what have you? Because whether they're made by robots or human hands or whatever, it's better that it's made here in the United States, guys, where at least we have labor laws, ethical laws, intellectual property laws. There's none of that in China. So it's not a bad thing. And RJ did bring up that point of $3,000. I mean, guys, nobody buys an iPhone or Android cash. Many of you do, but it's actually advantageous for you to finance it at your Verizon store or T-Mobile or whatever, because they're going to give you a better rate because of the interest. You're going to get, as you guys all know, I'm not picky about cell phones. I don't need the newest version. Every time I go in and upgrade, they conveniently never have like the iPhone 12 when the 14 is out or whatever. I don't need the 14X. So who cares if stuff costs? Like, that's the thing. I don't care if stuff costs more money. I really don't. Well, there's two reasons. A, I can afford it. And B, I know it's helping my economy. We've become obsessed with cheap, cheap, cheap. And guys, William McKinley and Theodore Roosevelt would puke if they were alive, knowing that there's a Dollar General in every fucking town in this country. Like they would be disgusted with the American people. And these were great Republican presidents of the early 20th century. All right, they would spit in our face after all they did to build this country up, and we're running to the dollar store for fucking tinfoil when it's $3.99 at the grocery store and it's 99 cents at the at Dollar General. It's not even as thick. Okay, this is what they were trying to avoid. This is why William McKinley tariffed everybody's ass in the 1890s, so we wouldn't have Dollar Generals in the 21st century with shit made in China, and we let them down. Okay, we let our great American presidents down. I just want to leave you with that. Summer, what's up? Good morning.
You are breaking my heart, sir. What the hell? Why are you attacking Dollar General? I love the Dollar General. I live in a tiny little town now, and the Dollar General is across the street from my house. I even became friends with the girls that work at the Dollar General. They love me. I love them. You're breaking me. But I will say this. This is so fun to watch. I recently reread The Art of the Deal, and we are watching Trump. I feel like I'm watching the book unfold. It's so amazing to see, and I love how he's just like, F you, China, finally, and I know it sucks momentarily. This is going to pass. It always does. We will be bigger and better than that is Trump's dream and goal, and it will be accomplished. But, having younger kids, it's kind of exciting to talk with them about this because obviously our schools don't teach this shit. And my daughter's history teacher is anti-Trump. So of course, and I'm kind of glad. I'm kind of glad she's getting, two different perspectives, and then she gets to actually see what's happening. And we've been talking about it, but this is it's Trump is doing what Trump does best. He is exposing the liars, the thieves, and the assholes. Most of those are our politicians. And it is so interesting to go back, and if you follow Maze Moore, he posted yesterday, I think it was yesterday or the day before, a clip of good old Chucky Schumer back in, 2017 saying how, Trump, he's not really giving it to China. And if he really said that, he would do all these things in his campaign and now it's a different tune. F you. These people they just anything against Trump and America and the average Joe. They don't give a shit about you. It is more obvious than ever. And Trump is he doesn't even have to do anything. Like, he's literally exposing this and these people for who and what they are. And I love it. But I'm really sad that you're making fun of my Dollar General love, but whatever. God bless America, Janet.
Summer, you're my two things. Summer is my favorite season because I could go fishing and work on my suntan.
Thank you.
And number two, you can get lanyards at Dollar General because somebody else let you down with those. I'm sure they have lanyards at Dollar General, don't they, for your golf tournament? So something to think about. We won't name names, but somebody didn't fulfill their proposal.
Which is today, by the way. Today is my golf tournament, and no, that's okay. He did his best. And
Well,
the only shit I buy at Dollar General, by the way, just to be very clear, because I am kind of a bougie girl, but I really do appreciate that I can run in and grab stuff for my kids' school, pens and pencils and crayons and stuff like that. And it isn't $1. It's not $1 anymore. So there's that. But whatever.
No, I understand. There's one not too far from me that I've actually never been in. It's been open like 15 years. It's right next door to an AutoZone. That I go into the AutoZone to get like wiper blades or whatever, but I've never been in that Dollar General. Don't get your wiper blades at Dollar General. Go to AutoZone. But I put up in the nest a little change the topic. You guys are all familiar with Brady Can, I know, and she's a good comic relief, not intentionally, but anyway, somebody made her lunch. If you look at the I Like Food meme account on here, so I hope she enjoys her lunch. You could take a look at that because it's been a very serious space. It's time to not be so serious for like 5 minutes. So take a peek at that. Oh, niece, you saw that, huh? Okay, good. A little bit of levity for the people. That's a funny account. I Like Food. It's got 1 million followers, by the way. They've got some really funny memes and shit. Take a peek. So Janet, you're co-hosting Patrick. Are you? That should hold the signal. I'm about to get in the truck in a few minutes. I hope I don't lose the space. So
Somehow
not-
it bumped me down. I don't know what happened.
Janet did it. No, I'm just kidding. I'll get you. I'll get you back up to co-host here
If
if you
you
want.
need me. If you need me, that's fine.
Sure. Yeah, like I said, I got about a half an hour commute to the job today. This is a good thing about being the boss. You could show up at 10:45. But I did 20 years of being on the job at 8 in the morning and 7:30 in the morning. Now that I'm the owner, fuck that. I did that enough. So continuing, guys, the news is overall good. Like Summer was saying, this is the art of the deal. If you haven't read it, you could read it in a day. You can't put it down. If I've had like a short flight to like Florida or something like that, and I've brought it with me and reread it. It's that quick a book. You should get it. Don't go on Amazon though. Go on the Trump store or whatever and buy it. But the point still stands. It's mandatory reading for everybody in here. And I know a lot of you have read it because I've heard various people talking about it. And that's what this is. He created maximum. There's two tenets you have to learn about the art of the deal. But by a guy whose whole life is making deals. One is put yourself in a position where you get maximum leverage. Isn't that what Trump just did with China? And these in various other countries that we do business with? Okay, he did that. And number two, which we're not at that point yet, but you still need to learn this the second tenet of the art of the deal. You got to put yourself in a position where the person the person or entity you're making a deal with, you create the appearance that you don't have to make the deal. You're not desperate, and look what he's done. Lo and behold, with China, he doesn't. Why does he need to make a deal with them? Even though he said, "Oh, sure, I'll talk to them." Why doesn't he need to make a deal with them? Because they're paying north of 100% in tariffs right now. Even if it's for a week or a month, who cares? He won the optics battle there, right? So these are all very important factors for you. All right, I gotta go. I've got to Niece, why don't you go ahead? I've got to not talk for a few minutes. I'm loading my truck up, so I cannot. I'll just pop in when I'm up and running. And like I said, I hope we don't lose the space. If we do, I'm not closing it on purpose. Niece, go ahead.
Okay, well, I wasn't going to have a whole lot to say, but since they're now going after our president for insider trading, which is such, you can't make this shit up. It's unbelievable. These son of a bitches who all do insider trading have got the nerve. They're grasping at straws to find anything. But my stock tip would be look at pharmaceuticals, because President Trump tried to do this in his first term, and I believe there was a lawsuit filed or something happened that squashed it, because I had a company name and I was going to invest in it and it was going to take off, and then it got squashed. But I see that being big, big for our country and for any kind of stock option. I think he's bringing a whole bunch of stuff back, but pharmaceuticals are major. And remember that, China does control a lot of that with our country, but India also is a huge supplier. So, don't kid yourself. President Trump knows all that. It's amazing the mind the man has, and I think that's one of the reasons why he likes to pit people against each other, get them all in a room and listen to Navarro and dissent, and go back and forth, and he keeps it all in his photographic memory and then makes a decision. And I just want to, and I'm going to kind of bloviate a little bit because I know Gaz is taking a minute, but going back to this Portnoy, that guy, I like the guy because he adopted Peaches, the dog. I don't know if you guys follow that. I only follow him because of that. It's a very heartwarming story. Now he's got another dog for Peaches, a playmate. And I think that's great. They've got great lives now. But this dude putting out that post, I think it was yesterday, that he's taking credit for the turn of the stock market yesterday. I mean, the hubris of some people, it's mind boggling. And this son of a gun is a multi-billionaire. I don't know. I'm just so tired of people like him and influencers on this app. Yes, that my eyes have been really opened up a lot. I pay no attention to it. I like to listen to Gaz. Gaz is very informed. He knows his shit. He knows what he's talking about. Unseen, it's another account, Unseen One, that I've talked about and Gaz knows about. I found that guy early on, and I don't know what his background is. I've known him a long time, just from year one of me joining, but he knows what he's talking about. And follow people like that, and I listen to people like that, and I do my own investigating, and then I'm going to segue back to the Freedom Caucus. Gad's made a great point, and I've been saying that too, and I posted it to Thomas Massey and to Rand Paul. Where the hell were you all these years that the pork and fat was being voted through. Yet bloviated and, beat your chest about it. But what the hell did you really do? And then they're going to use the excuse, well, we weren't in the majority or we were the minority. It's bullshit. President Trump is the big dog. He knows what the hell he's doing. He's a stable genius. He's all of that. And the fact that it's all, Katie barred the door. Great. This is exactly what we need to stymie the intentional destruction of our country. And the last thing I'm going to wrap up on is that when people start to say, when we all do, because we all start to think, can I trust this person that he's appointed because we know what happened to him in the first term? This is totally different. This is a 180 from his first term. I believe the man is a different man. I think Butler changed him. I believe that. I think God has his hand on his shoulder. And yeah, President Trump can be kind of obnoxious at time and snarky and he's the world's best troll. I don't care. You know what? If he can be an asshole, he's my asshole. He's our asshole. And I'm so thankful for him. And if we didn't have this man, we would be on the going over the cliff of socialism into communism, and there wouldn't be a way back. Let's keep it real. It's that simple. And that's why I trust the man. And that's why I give him all the quarter. And the bottom line is he's got the mandate. We voted him in for it. And all the other people that want to take their little stand and get reelected on a certain issue, I don't care. That's not what I'm looking at now. Let him do his work and give him what he needs. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys can hear me? Hopefully. Yeah. Yes, no, maybe. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Good stuff, Niece. Yeah, Unseen One is a guy I would follow. He's like me. He's an anti-libertarian populist, and he's got great tweets, great information. I'm getting Apothecary connected here. Hopefully she can be. But Janet, I'm loud and clear for you and Patrick and everybody else.
Loud and clear.
Awesome. All right. If you guys could just keep an eye on Apothecary, she's connecting. I approved her. Maybe because I'm driving now, but maybe try and get her up if you have a second. Thank you. That's 100% true, guys. That shouldn't be lost on any of you. What Nice was talking about. Now, Rand Paul's been in Congress since 2010. He was one of those Tea Party senators that was elected in Kentucky. Massey was about the same time. Paul Ryan was Speaker of the House. John Boehner was. I mean, they've had Republican majorities. They could have gotten rid of the Department of Education, which has been contentious since the early 80s. Reagan tried to get rid of it. So this has been like a hair across Republicans' asses for a long time, guys. We shouldn't have waited till 2025 to downsize it, for lack of a better term, and bring the money back have it be more of a state-controlled versus a centralized federal-controlled agency. So that's huge. Okay, so again, they're worried about the spending in this big, beautiful bill that the Senate has drafted, but they're ignoring the back-end savings of $1 trillion. Okay, Rand Paul couldn't cut $1 trillion out of the budget on his best day. So, and he hasn't even tried either. He just complains about spending money and declarations of war. By the way, this stuff with the Houthis, guys, while we're on this subject, in case this new President Trump, first of all, the Houthis guys are I know, here's the thing. Libertarians think you're retarded. The Houthis are not a state party of the country of Yemen. Just like ISIS wasn't a state party of Syria or Lebanon, just like BLM is not a state party of the United States, just like MS-13 is not a state party of El Salvador. These are terrorists and domestic terrorists. Okay, our president does not need to go to Congress to say, I need a declaration of war against Houthi pirates who have no capital, have no country of origin, have no mailing address, don't have any elected government or parliament, So no, we don't need a act of Congress to fire back at pirates that are firing at U.S. naval vessels in the Suez Canal. All right. I understand we don't want to get engulfed in anything major, but the Yemeni people can't really do anything about it, and they're trying to kill us too. So yeah, these declarations of war are a little bit different because we don't really declare war on countries. We declare war on terrorist groups, whether they're in Africa or the Middle East or whatever. And terrorist groups, while they, like the Taliban wasn't just Afghanis. There were Pakistanis, there were Egyptians. Osama bin Laden himself was actually Saudi Arabian, not Afghani. So how do you declare war? What are we going to do? Declare war on Afghanistan, Pakistan? Good luck getting that passed. So we're in a little bit of a different situation where our main attackers are not. When I say state party, I mean central federal governments of sovereign nations. All right. So I'm trying to bring you up to speed on all that. Oh, we lost Janet. Let's get her back up. Apothecary, if you're still in here, ask Patrick will approve you. I couldn't seem to get you up. Janet, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, it's not letting her up for some reason. It's just weird.
I dropped out and came back thinking it was me that couldn't give her the mic. So I thought maybe if I left and came back, I might be able to help her, but it
Can
might
you
be her. She might need to leave and come back again.
can you re-co-host Janet?
Yeah.
Yep, I will. Did you want to say something, Janet, while I'm connecting you to co-host or no?
Well, yeah, I agree with everything you said. The thing is that we people have got to stop being like kids. I mean, it's like, yeah, we've had to wait this long to get Trump in there to get him to do what we're asking him to do for America first, but he's doing it. And it's only been 70 something days and they're acting like it's been 5 years and he hasn't done shit. I mean, I just don't understand it. I just don't understand. And the fact that they're all throwing tantrums and stuff. I just don't get it. To me, every single thing he's done, like Nisi was saying, is he's doing step by step, lockstep to save this country. His actions have proven that. And even any person that doesn't even finish fifth grade should be able to get the common sense out of that and understand that he's doing what we need to do to save this country and put money back in Americans' pockets and to stop the corruption, to bring manufacturing back to our country, such as drugs and medicine and stuff like that that we need to be self-sustainable. And that's what I think he's trying to do. Make us the country that can sustain ourselves. If everything goes to shit, who's going to feed us? Who's going to take care of us? We are. And that's how it should be, period.
Yeah. And Janet, you've got chickens, right? So
Yep.
there you go. I mean, that's self-sustaining right there. And I'm sure if I want to make a frittata, you'd hook me up at a fair price if the shit hit the
Well,
fan.
yeah. And that's one of the things that I tell people in a lot of the spaces that I go to is to go to farmers markets, meet some of the people, your local farmers, and see what they have to offer. I've made, I hate to say it, but I've made t-shirt bags and quilts and a few other things for people to get certain seeds to grow in my own greenhouse because I want something that doesn't have all the genetically modified stuff. And today at the grocery store, when you get the fruit and vegetables, sometimes it says GMO right on it. So they're genetically modified, and I don't want that. I want my own seeds, and I want to be able to grow my own tomatoes or bell peppers or whatever. And I just make deals, and that's called bartering. But more people need to understand that you can become more self-efficient if you just take a few more minutes out of your day to make an effort to meet people. And once you do that, you can do it at school. It's amazing how many other parents you can meet at the elementary school little shows and stuff like that, talking to other parents about, what they do at home and blah, 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 and swap out chickens, swap out eggs. Because if you give fertilized eggs to your friend, they can give me some duck eggs and I can put them under my chicken. Next thing I know, I got ducks. There's just so many things you can do for yourself, but people just seem lazy. I mean, let's just drive through McDonald's and get those chicken McNuggets for my kid instead of going home and trying to make grilled cheese sandwiches or something that's a little healthier for your kid and you know where it came from, that kind of thing. And that's what I talk about, because I really do believe that we need to get back to the basics of raising our families and using our own skills to sustain ourselves and to spend more time together as a family instead of all sitting in the same room all on your phones. I mean, how many times have you guys gone into a restaurant and look around and see families of people at tables and they're all on their phone? They're not even having a conversation. And we need to get out of that. We need to get back to being a family and know what your family's involved in and what your kids are up to, period.
Yep. Right on. I agree with all that. The important thing is too, friends, is that you learn how to do. You can't be an expert at everything, but you got to learn how to do certain things. You got to be self-sufficient in certain ways, especially if you're in a rural or suburban / rural environment. You should make an attempt to grow some of your own food. You know, vegetables are the easiest, of course. Herbs, stuff like that. All right, thank you, Janet. Back on the no, I got a message that spaces are glitching across the board. So if this is glitching, apologies in advance. I don't know how much I could do about it right now, but we'll keep it going as long as I can. But feel free to grab a mic, friends. I want to know what you think about yesterday. I'm surprised they haven't heard more people talk about their. I'm not saying you tell me what you give up your whole deal or your privacy, but how your investments were yesterday, and were you nervous, or what do you invest in? You could speak in generalities. It's not our business. I'm curious for the feedback of. I can tell you my portfolio ripped yesterday afternoon, like everybody's did, and I can tell you, not financial advice, of course. The never financial advice. My guess is as good as anybody's. When Trump got elected and he started, well, maybe it was February, when he started talking about the steel and aluminum tariffs, I just did some quick homework uh, on like American, Cleveland based or Pennsylvania based domestic steel and aluminum companies, and they're not expensive stocks. They were all like under $50. One was as low as like $5 or $6. Anyway, I kind of stocked up on those, and those were ripping yesterday after the announcement of the 90-day pause. Those ones were doing better than like Ford. I bought a lot of Ford because they were cheap. Ford Motor. Don't tell anybody I'm a GM guy, but I think Ford was like $9 a share. So I got a bag of those. Anyway, let me get Rosie up, and then I see Niece is up too again. Rosie, go ahead. Then we'll go back to Niece.
Niece, go ahead. I'll go right after you.
Oh, thanks, Rosie. You're sweet. It's quick. Just want to give everybody a heads up. President Trump has a cabinet meeting at 11 Eastern. Those are always informative and fun and interesting. And I didn't buy or sell anything, Gads. I play with I don't know, just a few bucks. I got some crypto, and then I've got some other stuff I've got invested when I retired 10 years ago on my own. I let my other guy, my financial guy, handle my 401k and the big money, so to speak. But I'm in it for the long run. I'm not panicked. I'm not hoarding. I'm not doing anything. I mean, we're going to have ups and downs, and I think Janet made a great point. We got to give him time, and I know what he knows what he's doing, and I know that. I've got faith in it. So, if we have some more market, dips that go real low, it's going to come back. It always does. And I also wanted to make a point. I'm sorry, Rose. I want to make it quick, and here I go. About President Gantz had said about President Trump not really focusing on the market. He did excessively in his first term. He was always touting the market, but he does that for a reason. I 100% agree with what Gantz is saying. I don't think he pays that much attention to it. It's just a tool for him. I think he also knows that the markets are manipulated. And it's not really Main Street America that runs it. They're making money off our backs, just like our government has. And anyway, the last thing I wanted to say is, did you guys see that picture of Whitmer in the Oval yesterday with him? She looked like a kid standing in the corner who got her hand caught in the cookie jar. That was one of the best damn pictures I've ever seen. And it's just like Unseen One, the guy we talk about a lot. He's always saying the resistance is dead, Jim. It's dead. A great line from Star Trek. It's so true. If you look at her and you see somebody who was so vociferously against President Trump, and there she is in the Oval with him trying to make the Great Lakes great again. And that just doesn't happen. That just shows that they're done, they're cooked, and we have to remember that. Man, that just makes me smile every day. Go ahead, Rosie. I'm sorry I took too long.
Oh, never apologize. I love hearing you speak. And I didn't see that picture. So I can you please send that to me, because that's beautiful. And what I see right now, and the leader that we've chosen as President Trump, eh, he's brought many to heel. And it's kind of, it's a word to say, but I can't think of something better to say, because gosh, who else can do the things that he's doing? We were all in on November 5th, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. So every Massey, everyone who votes against him, if you claim to be a Republican, if you claim to love America, and you're going against it as one of us, they can go F off. They can F all the way off. I'm so over it. I don't live in their district, so I don't have to worry about my personal vote, but am I going to give them any credence? I'm not. You're nobody's hero. Where the hell were you? When we put on, we made a mandate on this president right here. And that's all in, all the poker chips in. He's on a legacy right now. I can't think of someone who would leave behind a large family to be in shame that they destroyed America. Can you imagine that burden and that weight? I look at the intention that someone would have, and I say this often, and I'll say it again. It reminds me of my dad, who, by the way, is heavily invested in the stock market. And I am so proud of him. He didn't flinch. Not a minute did he flinch. He's completely confident that he's chosen correctly. And he knows our financial interests will be served in the long haul. So, it's good to be taking America back, getting rid of the lies that we've been told. We've been so dependent on China, guys. This has been a great learning experience. Had Trump gotten in 2020, we wouldn't know what we were up against. We wouldn't understand really the entire mosaic picture. And we still don't know all of it. But, when you think about the children that are being used to produce these clothing, there's a lot of slave labor involved. And we talk so much about child trafficking. What about the children who are working in these factories? Is it worth saving a couple bucks? It's not worth it to me. So I'm very happy about that. And we're on the right path. I know we are. And, we keep moving forward, and our influence in our communities, people see that when we're not worried and we're giving each other high fives. I know who the people I work with, who the supporters are, and they see us confident. There is something to that. And it's contagious. If you're going to be fear porning, that can be contagious too. There's a whole bunch of spacers that love to talk about the black pill, the sky is falling, talking about all these other countries. No. I'm not doing it. Gads, I appreciate your space because you think differently than I do. I have gotten into a place where I can think more like you, and I appreciate that because I'm not numbers driven, but you help me understand and you simplify it. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries. I just had a quick question before we go to Patrick. Thank you for that, Rosie. What's the fallout on the diner today? If you've had a chance,
Well, they have a cartoon alligator who has really taken hold the last 2 days, been hosting. Yesterday was over 6 hours. They ran it. And I will tell you, the person who was the China influence in there was in that space. So it's not even right. It's not even the normal lineup. I hate Trump. And now it's complete propaganda. Now it's completely taken over. I can't even guess.
So these are
it is
the simp spaces I'm talking about. I'm blocked from all of them, so I can't. But I rely on certain people. But I guess the prevailing wisdom is the last week is they think that Trump should be impeached by the 25th Amendment, right? Over his
that is correct.
handling of the market?
They are calling and one in particular who's typically there, who's not there today. He was calling saying everyone needs to contact their congressman, everybody in the cabinet, and tell them to 25th Trump. You know what? You haven't been for him since go. uh you're basically, by saying to 25th him, you're trying to negate the vote of over 70 million Americans, the populace of the country, the majority. You're trying to turn our vote to your favor. I don't think so, and I think that's a really big statement, and I think he holds an awful lot of responsibility for saying that. Freedom of speech, go right ahead, but I'm not going to cover for him.
Yeah, I tend to agree 100%. They got problems. And here's the good thing, guys. They've been wrong about everything. Remember how DeSantis was going to win Iowa? Remember that? Yeah, they remember it too. They just don't like talking about it. They're 0 for fucking 300 at this point. Why? At this point, it's comedy. So thank you for bringing that to light, Rosie. Patrick, go ahead, buddy.
Hey, I just wanted to get on the back of what Nice was saying. We had a really deep space last night with Jack and Cliff and others, and we got into the markets big time. Most of this stuff is inflated manipulation. These guys are doing this stuff all day long, right? Like that's kind of the summary of what Jack was really good at kind of outlining it. And I know there's a lot of concern about the markets, and the market folks, they live in their world. They only know their world, right? Some of this stuff is automatic for them. They're not able to, I think, take in other factors that are going on, that like where Trump just totally reversed course and changed his tactic yesterday based on China. Like he probably expected it, but they don't have that in their view. So we're going to see these wild swings as this stuff continues. I mean, potentially, I don't know. I think maybe it's now clear to them where things are headed, right? And that they get it, and they'll start taking it into account, so we don't have some of this crazy. But there's also a lot of computers trading, so things start happening, and maybe the circuit breakers kick in. Who knows? But I just want to point that out, that there's a whole lot more under the surface of stocks that's affecting what we see and what's going on.
Question, Patrick. How do you get into anything deep with Cliff there? Because
Not Cliff, it was Jack and a couple other people. Cliff just sat there silently, but he's a lawyer and he uses it to A/B test. I think we've had this conversation with him where he just he tests his arguments, right? And so you're coming at him, he's coming at you, because I mean it's kind of in his world, just like the stock market. In his world, that's how he manages his career. That's what he does, right? And so I think it's just practice for him and in how he's going to rebut questions and statements and pick it apart. So that's really Cliff's stick. Yeah, he's left and it sounds very unreasonable, but I think that's just how he, again, just like the stock people have their world, legal world has theirs, and they can be rigid in that. Me, I'm a tech guy, so I look at things in that worldview and try and scrutinize everything, but then what flows to the surface and what's important, and to get you over the fence to solve the problem, right? Or to build the solution. So that's kind of my thing.
He's the king of plausible deniability. And
no doubt.
Very easy to entrap in a losing argument, I've noticed. So one would think why he doesn't hang out with other lefties, but anyway, good stuff. Yeah, and you're right. Market people only know the markets. Like the kid who was in there a few hours, that RJ kid, day traders and stuff, very rarely do they have broad investments. They're very, connected to day trading and things like that. I mean, I don't know anything. That's the impression I'm getting based on what he was telling me. It's the Dave Portnoy mentality that I've talked about, that Nice talked about. I'm not one of these guys. Like, I got to tell you, my stock investment is like, I'm not shitting you guys, like 5% of what being self-employed, I do my own retirement. It's like 5% of what I do. It's real estate and paying down mortgages on income property. That's my game. It's I'm the king of bills, but that's my retirement. Roth IRA, which I would suggest all self-employed people to get. And I have a life insurance policy where if I reach a certain age, I can liquidate it without a tax penalty or a minimal tax, provided I don't die, obviously. And even that's not a lot of money. It's like it's like $80,000. But I mean, you know what? When I'm 62, that's probably going to go a long way, or 63.
I've been
Go ahead.
long in Apple, right? I know you asked this question earlier, but I've been long in Apple, and that has paid off amazingly for a safer investment, right? In terms of safe but aggressive. And just because they had so much cash, and now that may change, but as the factories move around, but I doubt it's going to be a problem. But anything can change, right? So, but why a Roth? What's your logic in that versus traditional?
Just honestly, I have it through USAA, and they just have good, but Roth are minimal safe investments. It's almost like buying CDs at the bank or credit union or whatever. A Roth mainly because my dad had one, my grandfather. I'm like third generation self-employed, so it's just always been a safe store of money, basically. I haven't
Well,
really
each
done any
each
research.
instrument fits everyone's. It has to fit your heavy real estate, right? But it has to fit
Yeah,
your risk tolerance and what makes sense for you in terms of percentage of your assets and where they sit and what you want out of it. So that makes
right.
sense. Yeah.
So I'm overweighted in real estate with income properties. That's my now. I don't make any money off of them now. I don't take any money. Like the taxes are very very high because they're an affluent. So I'm if I have tenants in there, they're barely covering expenses, and that's not because I'm bad with money. I'm actually great with money. It's because we get they're like I said, they're in an affluent area that there's tax assessments every year, and taxes never go down. They always go up. New Hampshire has the highest energy costs in the country, uh, thanks to some bad deals our senators made. Uh, and two of the places are all electric, heat, hot water, air conditioning, and that's the highest that the supply charge. Eversource is the power company in southern New Hampshire. They have the highest supply. The supply charge to get it there is more money than the usage of the fucking tenant. So wow, this guy makes a killing on rent collection. And then you see what my overhead, my property taxes, my insurance is because it's coastal. And I go a small insurance company because USAA doesn't fucking do coastal property. So yeah, I mean, my expenses are massive, but I mean, luckily they're not costing me money yet. I hope I never get to that point, but I'm overbalanced in real estate.
You must have some
So
good write-offs then if you're kind of not. You said you're just barely
yeah,
covering expenses, so
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I'm at the max of what I could charge in rent. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I see what my tenants make. Like they can't afford. I can't raise their rent. Uh, at least they haven't been able to since during the Biden years. I mean, I know what they make, and I know I'm charging top of the market rent. So I'm not.
well,
If I have to
do you have a
go ahead.
lot of
Yep.
turnover?
No.
Yeah,
No.
you're good then. You're set. Even if things deflate, you know, if they're not searching, they're not, if they can afford that top tier, they're not going to go out and look for a cheaper option.
Right. The only thing I'm at a disadvantage in is if if I have to start using my own money for now. I save a ton of money because I'm handy. Don't get involved in what I'm doing, guys. If you're not a handy person, don't do it because tradespeople are making as much as lawyers are. So if you're not handy, do not become a landlord. That is, even if you're rich, because you're going to be so desperate to have repairs fixed. Guys like me are going to have you by the nuts, and you're going to have no choice but to pay me. And I charge a lot. So for other landlords, because I know that they can afford it.
It depends on
And
what your time value is too, in terms of your own you work otherwise, right? Like you do construction, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
your time
I
is
do
worth
renovation.
money.
Yeah,
Yeah, your time is worth money. And if you're losing money by going over there to do it yourself, but then you're getting stuck up at the same time, it's kind of a wash. But at least
yeah,
you have control of it.
yeah. So that's my suggestion, because I've gotten some random DMs about, oh, I'm in this state, and it's advantageous to have an income property, and I always tell people, is your husband, it's a woman that is your husband handy? No, he doesn't. He can't do shit. I said that I wouldn't do it. I'm just being honest with you. Like, she sent me pictures from Zillow and everything. I said, if your husband doesn't know how to use a screwdriver, lady, this is not the right investment for you. It just isn't, because especially that first year or two, you're going to lose money, as I did. Okay. It doesn't mean you're shitty at business. It means that you have to spend a lot to get to a property to a certain level. And these are just one bedroom, shanties I have. These aren't like, they're detached and they're year round, but they're not, you can only have two people in there max. So I mean, how much can I conceivably get in rent? So I got to think about it that way.
We saw a dip in a family beach rental that we have the last couple of years. The Biden years really hurt it. People, there's just all it takes is 2 weeks in the summer that don't rent, and it's significant, right? In terms of it's just the market and what it will or won't rent for. And you usually don't want to take. I've learned, don't take cheaper tenants just to fill the week, because that ends up problems, right? The people that are searching for a deal are not the ideal. Most of the time, are not an ideal tenant, at least that I've found. So it's very interesting. People going to the beach for the week in the summer. Get away from DC, Nova, Philly, those areas, going into Delaware. But um, yeah, I mean, the Biden years certainly depressed it a good bit, because people didn't have the money. They're spending on groceries, and they don't feel like they can take a vacation. And then boom, it popped this year. It was like clockwork. So I couldn't believe it. Going into the Trump years, it went up and up and up and up, and we were just like, wow. And then Biden came in. The first year was fine. Everyone got out of COVID lockdown. It was booked max, and now the next 3-4 years, it was 2 weeks off, 2 weeks off. So this is totally different from what it was. Now there are more people renting. There's more houses for rent, because people, they're squeezed, right? Second home and all of that. But yeah, it's very interesting how this has played out. But I'm optimistic that just Trump coming into the scene, if we don't continue to see people strapped for cash, just the mindset alone filled those weeks. So just kind of interesting tidbit. At least down, every market's different, right? So it depends on where you are and what you're offering.
Yes, and good point, Patrick. And I'll leave you guys with this, because I'm almost no traffic when I left a little late here. This is great. I was just checking. Just asked me. You know who you are. You're still in here. I see you. And I've said about it. People.
Yeah,
The
you're
world.
rugged bad.
Am I? All right. Hold on.
Yeah.
Any better now? All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, I
Sorry,
think so.
guys.
It sounds like
I'm
you're
gonna
out of it.
close this pretty soon.
Yeah, you're out of it. You're good.
I'm out of it. All right. Awesome. Yeah, I'm getting the. Say, asked me if everything lined up right, what two places am I looking at for investment? It's not Florida. You guys know my feelings on that. But one, I've always had a soft spot for Raleigh, North Carolina, Raleigh, Durham, that area, because I know it's a blue area, but the houses are fairly new, and $600,000 buys you a lot of house there. And the neighborhoods are. I know it's a Democrat area, but the neighborhoods are really nice, I think. I've always had an affinity for that area, and it's a good market to buy detached homes in, or single family homes for income properties, because a lot of transient people work in Raleigh. Raleigh's an easy airport to get in and out of compared to other state capitals, and it's got everything there. So the area sells itself. That's a prime spot in my opinion. And the other, trying to think here. My older sister has had a lot of luck. She's in the same line of work as me, kind of in the Philadelphia suburbs, because there's a lot of stuff that comes up on auction on foreclosure that you could buy for $50,000. You know, I mean, you might have to put some money into them, but so I'll look into that. But right now, you know, North Carolina, I think, is a good investment. Raleigh, Durham, I can't speak to the rest of the state because I don't pay attention to it as much. And I would just say coastal Carolina in general, because sadly, after the natural disasters and all that, there's usually your insurance rates will be very high, but there's a buying opportunity there. And I think everybody likes to vacation. Not Myrtle Beach, but there's a lot of nice areas in coastal North Carolina, the Outer Banks and all that I would look into. So those are my picks. Anyway, you guys have a great day. I gotta head out. Almost at the job site. Janet, Patrick, thank you. Thanks for bearing with me. I'm glad we had a long.
First off, let me convey to my family, friends, and supporters that now is not the time to gloat. We must remember that most of our left-leaning friends are good people who want the same things in life as we do, but simply think differently on how to get there. It is now time to be the bigger man, to extend an olive branch and unite all reasonable people of this great nation. God has blessed America, and together with President Trump, we will make America great again.